Yeah, so the thing is about that photo of the moon that they do with the phones, they found out that that's kind of bullshit.
No, let me show you some of mine.
I know, I've took it too, but what it is it's AI. And so what someone did
this is AI?
Yeah, what someone did online, one of them clever kids, they took a very blurry photo of the moon and they put it on a screen across the room.
Okay.
And then they zoomed in on it as if it's the moon, and the camera showed detailed craters.
Oh, well, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like this, you know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
no, that's a real picture.
Yeah.
So that you just used the 100x zoom.
Yeah.
You didn't use the moon photo thing.
Yeah, no. This is
there's a moon
just
shot.
Me standing outside.
There's a moonshot aspect to that. That's a little.
I gotta check that. I didn't know about that one.
Yeah, if you zoom in on it, if you zoom in on the moon. Okay, I don't think that's real. See, that's what I'm talking about. I think that's AI.
The AI recreates it?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I know. I was showing off.
Pretty impressive. Yeah.
I have the 22, I think the S22 Ultra. I had the older one, and I would take photos of the moon. I'm like, look, I thought bullshit. I can't do this. And it turns out it looks like I got food. Yeah, because you can't hide stuff like that, like internet technology stuff.
Right,
Those guys are too good.
They know it.
They know everything. Yeah. But we were just talking about the difference. I'm really thinking about switching to one. I'm just tired of being trapped. Yeah. And it's just like this resistance. Everybody's like, don't do that. I'm like, oh my God, it's like a mind virus. Like everybody's like culturally locked into having a blue bubble.
But when you tell them you're going to switch from Apple, then Agent Smith shows up from the inhabits their body, and they try to tell you to stop doing it. Don't do it. Like try to convince you not to leave.
It's like if you were a Catholic and you said, I'm going to become a Baptist.
Right.
You know, people would go, don't do it.
Right.
Don't do it. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
It's not that much different.
I know. It's crazy.
It's weird.
Yeah.
People get weird with everything. They get weird with their beliefs. They get weird with what they subscribe, what group they attach themselves to.
So true.
It's so strange. And I think this is a good way to segue into like what you do, and because these subjects, so many of these subjects, so many people have like an instantaneous reaction.
Yeah.
And that instantaneous reaction is, oh, hogwash.
Yeah.
If this was true, I would already know about it. It would be taught in universities. It would all be. But then you find out, like, no one is really just kind of trying to piece stuff together. Specifically talking about ancient tablets, which are, to me, some of the most interesting things about ancient history. Particularly what came out of ancient Sumer.
Yeah.
Ancient Sumer, when you look at their tablets and like, what are they saying? And why would they dedicate so much time to talking about this stuff?
Exactly.
Why do they have pictures of giant, enormous people-looking things with like a humanoid with a tail sitting on their lap? Like, what is this just fiction? Like, why would they detail this? And how do they have a representation of the solar system with the correct amount of planets and relatively the correct order and size? You know, it's not exact, but it's an artistic version of the real thing. And how the hell, 6,000, 5,000 years ago, do they know that? And what explanations do we have? Like, what's the conventional explanations when people try to dismiss what they knew in ancient Sumer?
Well, the conventional explanation is always going to the term mythology. They throw mythology around, you know, left and right to cover up the fact that they have no cool idea. So they turn it into mythology so they can kind of say it's all fantasy and fairy tales, and this is how they express themselves or how they understood the universe. It's all mythology, it's all fake, but in reality, it's not all fake. These people left behind such detailed records and information. It's a time capsule of information on stone tablets for us today to be able to decipher, break down, and understand, and that's what we're here to do now.
When you look at these ancient languages like cuneiform, can you read that? Do you know how to read it?
Yeah, a small amount of it, yeah. Studying it from books that I have bought right off of Amazon.
Oh.
Yeah, so basically you take a stick. It looks like a stick with a kind of a curved end, right? Almost sharpened. It's called a stylus. And then
just like a stylus for an iPad.
Exactly, very similar, right? And then you take a piece of wet clay, and right before it's too wet or too dry, right in the middle stage, you then start wedging, making these incredible lines into the clay, and then from that you get this cuneiform text. So this text, literally, some of the letters actually relate to complete ideas. But it's incredible work, and it takes a long time to do. And then you have to let this thing dry, and then it becomes stone. So, you know, if people were supposed to be trying to worry about how they're going to get their next meal, shelter for the night, and all these kind of things, who has time to sit down and write these incredible works of art like the Epic of Gilgamesh, for example? So I think they really were writing down, and also they were transcribing information that was given to them by these quote-unquote gods, the low PhD.
So when you're reading things like the Epic of Gilgamesh, for people who don't know, is one of the oldest versions of a lot of the stories that you hear in the Bible. Very similar to them. They seem to be, there always seems to be a great flood. There's a few heroes. There's angry gods. There's a bunch of stuff going on. And Zecharia Sitchin's work was like the most controversial on the Sumerian text, right? Because there's a whole website called SitchinWrong.com. Like people go crazy about him. But when he starts talking about it, when you read some of the things that they wrote, and when you see like some of the images that they created, images that look like the double helix of DNA, and there's a bunch of the like that now we represent the caduceus, which represents pharmacies and drugs, like that's the old version of an image of the double helix of DNA, or at least it looks super similar to that.
Oh, it definitely is, because it's referenced even in the Egyptian Book of the Dead and other ancient texts. So there's no coincidences here. Now, Zecharia Sitchin, you know, I don't particularly go by his work, not because it's controversial. I believe he was one of the greatest researchers of all time, and the reason why is because he laid out so much information for us to begin to scratch our head and ask questions. But what I figured out was that by going through the UCLA CDLI online cuneiform digital library, say that back 10 times, I was able to take stone tablets and decipher them myself. So anyone can go online to the UCLA CDLI
that burnt the shit out of his ass. He started running.
And read these stone tablets for themselves. You don't need Zecharia Sitchin. You don't need anyone else. And as I began to break these tablets down,
do they have them transcribed, or are you reading the actual tablet?
They transcribe. They actually transcribe them into English for you.
Is there controversy as far as like, are there different versions of the transcription? Like, does some people think it's interpreted differently? There's like some debate about that.
Only where it comes to where some of the text is missing. There could be pieces chipped off of tablets. You see that corner missing from that tablet right there in that.
Just look how wild. Just how wild is that exist?
Yeah.
And that this was, it's so hard for people to put in their brain 5,000 years of time, and that there's these people that have this very bizarre language. Like when you look at that language, we don't even know what it sounds like, right?
No, and the language popped up out of nowhere. You know, you're talking about a civilization that appeared out of nothing.
It looks like computer code.
It does.
Doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
But just imagine like a human being decided that they were going to write down in these very bizarre, and they all agreed that all these things mean a certain thing. So they had to somehow or another have a Rosetta Stone or something where they're documenting it so that people can learn it and teach it. And then we're looking at it 5,000 years later.
Yeah.
It's so amazing.
It is. And what's incredible is this text was translated in the 1800s, long before Zecharia Sitchin was born. So there are some rumors that, he was the only one that could decipher these tablets. But no, George Smith, who worked as an Assyriologist and wrote many books and deciphered these Sumerian tablets in the 1800s. So we're talking about texts that have been deciphered for a few hundred years, nothing that was just deciphered recently.
The fuck?
So what are the first decipherings? Like what year was the first deciphering?
It was in 1800. I think around 1850, George Smith. He actually worked at the I believe it was Cambridge.
And what was his take? Like, when he's reading all these wacky stories and all the Anunnaki stuff? Like, what's his take on it?
He is literally subscribing to this information the way almost that you and I see it today. These people saw something, experienced something, interacted with something. And he cataloged it, and it inspired him to write a complete translation of the Enuma Elish and the 7 tablets of creation. And he talks about the fact that information was copied right from those tablets and put into the Old Testament of the Bible. And so, not exactly like what's going to go from here to the Bible, but it went to other ancient papyruses and scriptures and so forth. And then later on, when it was discovered in caves, people took those and then said, okay, we got to put this into a book. And then it became the Bible much later, around 100 AD. But he subscribed to the theory that these people interacted with beings in some way, shape, or form, and that also this information is so incredible that it became part of the biblical text.
Did you ever read the Dead Sea Scrolls?
Yes.
So the Dead Sea Scrolls wasn't found in... It was in
Qumran, but I think again this was also, I believe, in the late 1800s or early 1900s.
Is when they found it. So these things were written on animal skins, and this is the only... I mean, this is a very old version of those exact same stories, or some of similar stories.
Yeah.
There's a lot of weirdness in the Dead Sea Scrolls. I haven't read it, but is there any references to anything that's similar, like Anunnaki type characters, or Nephilim, or anything like that in the Dead Sea Scrolls?
They show up everywhere in the Dead Sea Scrolls, in the English, the Epic of Atrahasis. Of course, even in the Bible, they're known as the Anak, A-N-A-K. We were grasshoppers in their eyesight, it says in the biblical text. So no matter where you go in any culture, you're going to discover that these beings, in some way, shape, or form, engage mankind.
Mustache.
Knowledge, teaching, building techniques, and just so much more wisdom and information, esoteric wisdom, alchemy, all these things came from these people.
So the craziest version of this story is that they genetically engineered us out of lower primates and put us here to mine gold.
Right.
And then established different types of civilizations and taught us how to build things, taught us all these different things. And enough time has
none of
passed,
this
we
shit.
kind of forgot. Enough time has passed. That's the wackiest version of it, right?
Right. That's the bare bones minimum.
Yeah, the wackiest versions they made us, which is we've talked about this a couple of times, but how bizarre it is that human beings have this incredible fascination for gold. We're fascinated with gold. This fascination with gold is really weird. Like, why back when it was basically useless? You couldn't make a knife out of it. You couldn't. It didn't make sense that this would be so valuable. Just because it's rare, you're barely alive. We're going back to full-on hunter and gatherer, our ancestors with spears and stone chipped. And then after that, gold emerges. And it stays. It stays forever. Now, when you read Zecharia Sitchin's book, he talks about this in the 1970s. His description of it was that they needed to suspend gold particles in the atmosphere because their atmosphere is being destroyed. Then you move to somewhere around the 2000s when climate scientists start proposing this idea of suspending reflective particles in the atmosphere.
Right.
And then when you realize the unique properties of gold, how unusual it is in terms of a building material, you can coat things. The reason why things are coated in gold, gold plated rather, you can take a tiny piece of gold and cover an enormous area with it. It's a strange metal, really weird. And what the supposed story is, it's very common on Earth, very rare on Nibiru.
Right. Yeah, that's a story. And then when I started looking into this gold thing myself, and here's what I came up with. So when you start analyzing the text, you discover that there was an encampment in a place called South Africa at Adam's Calendar. Okay? Now at Adam's Calendar, there's actually the very first gold mines discovered. That's dating them back to about 200,000 years ago. And that's incredible because there's a building there that looks like a worn down structure. Now in the tablets, it talks about the fact that the Ijiji, who were the working class Anunnaki beings who were cleaning out the Euphrates and Tigris River so they can create irrigation and create a bustling civilization. Also, they were doing the actual construction themselves. No people needed, just them working. They were like the construction workers, and Anu and Enki and Enlil, these leader gods, were like the foremen, the master architects and so forth, right? The boss. So these people were working, but they weren't supposed to be enslaved. They were volunteers. They got tired of doing the work, according to them, for about 250,000 years of the labor on Earth, and also, according to them, on Mars. This is in the text, they call it Ramu. And so they decided to go to war against Enki and Lil and Anu because their demands had not been met. So they went to meet them in the Epic of Atrahasis. They go to Adam's calendar, go to that same structure that was discovered where that gold mine is located. I was like, holy crap, there is some link here to gold. Specifically, exactly, I don't know, but I know if you're an advanced civilization, you need gold. And the people that you have working for you probably think, it's to adorn or to adorn yourself or in recognition of the god, so they'll wear it and they'll utilize it, but not for technology. But what's crazy is they go to war, they go to get ready to go to battle, and then Enki says, I have an idea that will stop this war. There's an existing being on this planet. Existing, not something that doesn't exist, existing. We can add our essence to it with a slain god. So they're talking about taking the DNA or genetics from one of themselves and mixing it with the DNA of the hominid that was here. It's not specified whether it was, an ape man or anything. They don't specify in the tablets, but to create a worker being. And they began to do this genetic modification, probably disconnecting some of our DNA, making genetic modification to us to get us to take orders from them. They inserted something called a worship gene, which was just discovered recently, that human beings have a gene inside of them that can be turned on and turned off. It can be turned off in a laboratory setting. It can also be turned off with a magnetic field around your head. And when it's off, you don't want to worship anything outside of yourself. You look inside, and when it's on, you look to get something from the outside. So this is incredible. And so they made us worship
a gene inside of us to make us worship them.
Right.
How genius.
That's incredible, because then you're not a slave anymore. You're doing this for the honor of the gods.
And for people who think all this talk is really crazy, I want to put in perspective that we talked about this the other day, that during which war was it where the Soviet Union was experimenting? It was scientists in the Soviet Union, correct? They're experimenting with creating a chimpanzee human being hybrid that they would probably send to war.
Yeah.
So instead of having regular people, we would make this monster, this freak, ape man, and send him to war and have him crush the enemies.
Yeah.
It's like, just how crazy is that? They knew how strong chimps are. I got an idea. Let's turn a chimp human, and that way, if he dies, who gives a fuck?
Right.
We made him. Get him to go to work for us.
Yeah.
And now, if you're a supremely enlightened being, wouldn't you think of human beings with all of our folly and all of our chaos and all of our war and bullshit and the internet and disinformation and misinformation, wouldn't you think of us kind of the same way we would think about that chimp hybrid thing? If I was, I'm president of Russia, I want my cousins to go to war?
No.
Or I would have sent this freak that I made in a lab.
Yeah, and what's interesting, I'm glad you said made in a lab. They had talked briefly in that text about fashioning people. In other words, almost like they said the word fashion. Fashioning the being.
What was can you remember the actual quote?
I have to look it up, the actual quote.
But they describe it as fashion.
Fashion, because they said even the lamb hasn't been fashioned yet, so they had fashioned lambs. So they fashioned, it's also in the Epic of Gilgamesh, they fashioned the friend that Gilgamesh went on the journey with. He wasn't born from a woman's womb. They created him. They created him an artificial being to go on this journey in the Epic of Gilgamesh. So they used that phrase several times in the tablets. But they said, no, wait. It was almost like that's not a good idea, because in some ways it seems as if they had known that the idea of making these too many artificially created people wouldn't be a good idea. Now, they didn't go deeper than that, but you can see where we are today with AI and everything else, and these robots that are coming. Maybe they knew something about that, but they decided to take a biological gene and genetically modify and program that to do work, and that's exactly what they did.
Well, if they really knew what we would be capable of, and that we would be illogical, overpopulation would be a gigantic issue. And in many parts, it's not really that big of an issue here, except for in cities, but in many parts of the world, it's the whole country. The whole country is New York City, which is just fucking bonkers. And you gotta wonder, it's actually not true. It's not even that bad, even in China. China has a lot of open space, but when you're in those cities, they are massive, and they are filled with people. And that is probably what you'd imagine a higher being would do if it was like us, like kind of illogical and kind of a little bit reckless and has a little bit too much technology for the average person that didn't develop the technology. But all of a sudden you got some 85 IQ dope who has access to all the things that all these geniuses have created.
Yeah.
I mean, you could figure, we talked to Michio Kaku, he built a nuclear reactor in his house when he was a kid.
I heard about that. It was crazy.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I know.
That's so crazy. But there's a lot of different stuff that you can do and have access to technology that is beyond anything you would ever be able to invent with your own mind. But because we share things across the board, you would imagine that if you were an enlightened being from another planet that's a million years more advanced than us, you'd go, I see where this one's going. You know, like you have that cousin who's an alcoholic and then he wins the lottery, like, oh shit, Derek just won the lottery.
Yeah.
This is gonna be crazy.
Yeah.
Derek's got $200 million.
Right.
It's gonna be fucking insane.
It's crazy. And they knew they were going outside their own guidelines and their own laws, their parameters, because they made a statement in the text. They said the creator of all is going to punish them, or they would have to answer to the creator of all for what they did here. So, and that lets you know they weren't really gods. They knew themselves that they weren't the creator of the universe, but that they masqueraded as gods on this planet.
Just like we did when different versions of human civilization would find primitive tribes, like the cargo tribe,
cults.
the cargo cult that you talked about in your documentary. That is so fascinating that during World War II, planes landed on these remote places, and these people built mock planes to show like what the thing was that came to visit them that they thought were like gods. Do you think that if the Anunnaki are real, and if Nibiru really exists, and there's another planet with highly intelligent beings that are far more advanced than us, if that's the case, do you think there's more advanced, and more, just like we are to chimpanzees, they are to us, and then another race is to them, and then it just keeps going on and on.
They gave me the Mac 10.
Absolutely. I believe there's levels to the game, just like there's levels in terms of how we live on this planet.
Yeah.
You know, we have the first world, second world, third world, just here on Earth. Now, magnify that as a fractal, as a universe as a whole. You have civilizations that are 1 million, 2 million, maybe even 1 billion years ahead. And every universe every civilization progressing within the universe at a specific rate. So you can have beings that have already maybe even shed their corporeal bodies and only exist as beings of energetic light. And then you have everything all the way back down towards us. In the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, he actually says that he has achieved the ability to incarnate at will on and in the plane he desires. He claims to be able to incarnate whenever he wants and even into other dimensions, which is wild.
That's next.
Yeah, that's next.
But it does make sense that if we're capable of doing what we're doing, we were talking about your phone, your Samsung, Galaxy S24 Ultra with zooms and all this different shit, that's magic to someone just 200 years ago. And if it keeps going, and you keep like playing this out as far as possible, it kind of makes sense there would be levels to the kind of intelligent life that exists in the universe beyond our comprehension. Have you talked to Terrence Howard? Do you know his theory about how planets are created? That it's just things ejecting from the sun over billions and billions of years, and that there's a Goldilocks zone where you can create life, and that's where the people are. And then as this Goldilocks zone gets broken, you have to be super technologically proficient in order to control your environment to the extent that you no longer require the sun in order to keep you alive. That kind of makes sense for the heroes out there past Pluto.
Oh, it makes a lot of sense.
It makes sense that they...
I just talked to him a couple hours ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, so we were talking about weight conjugations and everything.
Fucked me up for like 3 days. I left this podcast for 3 days. I was like, damn. First of all, how the fuck is he so smart? Like, how would you ever imagine that a dude who's an actor on a television show or a movie is that smart? Like freaky smart.
Right.
But his theory about the creation of planets, I was like, oh, that makes sense.
Oh, it makes a lot
We
of sense.
watch stuff fly off the sun all the time. And if this matter over time would coalesce and become a planet.
Yeah, it creates an accretion disk. Everything in space creates accretion disk. So once that
What is that word? Accretion disk?
Yeah,
What does that
accretion
mean?
disk. So once you have a certain amount of mass in space, it instantaneously, on its own, wants to create this circular, like the shape of our Milky Way galaxy. It wants to start circling and swerving around itself. And then as it does that, it begins to create friction. As that friction increases, the matter begins to collapse in towards each other, all right, based on its own energy, and then it forms a ball. And that then builds and attracts more mass until it builds into a moon or a planet or whatever.
What do you do when you encounter flat Earth?
Oh man, I just try to be quiet. I just tell them, look, it's not my thing. You know, I remember Flat Earth Society offered me money years and years ago And I was like, no, I don't believe the Earth is flat. I'm not getting involved with this. And they really attacked me hard, death threats and everything else.
They get very upset.
Yeah.
I do not understand. I just think it's people committing to an idea. It just doesn't make sense.
Well, it's a religion. They turned it into a religion. Anytime that people can attack you so brutally over that, I mean, I'm on live talking about quantum physics and they're in the chat. The Earth is flat. The Earth is. I mean, so that's like, I mean, one guy.
Fascinated by it because yeah, because it's the ultimate conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
The ultimate conspiracy theory is that we are all on a set, and that the Earth is flat. It's a disc. There's a wall. The government's aware of it. They won't let you pass a certain distance. Yeah, there's ice walls.
Yeah.
And that space is just lights in the sky.
Right. That's it. And the sun is a bulb, and all this kind of stuff. It's wild.
And it's attached to a version of Christianity.
It is. It's tied into Christianity. The 6,000-year-old theme. The Earth is only 6,000 years old. The reason why people think the Earth is 6,000 years old is because most of the tablets are 6,000 years old, and the Bible was written from the information that came from tablets. So that's as far back as anybody's quote-unquote knowledge seems to extend. That's where the 6,000-year-old theory comes from. But they've taken that thing and turned it into a religion. I remember one guy DM'd me and he was going off and telling me he was going to shoot me in the head and all this stuff. And I said, let me ask you a question. If there's no atmosphere, then what are you breathing right now? He goes, what do you mean? Well, I'm breathing oxygen. I said, well, that's a gas. Gas doesn't exist. I said, well, then you should be dead then, because you're breathing a gas. What else are you inhaling when you breathe? He goes, oxygen. I said, well, no, you're breathing in, helium, krypton,
mostly
all
nitrogen.
Yeah, nitrogen. I said, you're breathing in all these other gases. Oxygen is only about 21% of that, otherwise you'd be dead. So he couldn't tell. I said, did you graduate from high school? He said, no. I said, stop talking. That's when I realized, don't waste your energy on these people.
Well, there's a lot of dudes, unfortunately, who just get on YouTube and they listen to very charismatic people talk that don't know what they're talking about, which I do all the time. But they do it in a way where they pretend they know something is true that's not true.
Yeah.
And people get sucked into it.
I know.
And I just don't understand why you would think that Earth is the only one out of all these things that we've observed that's flat. It just doesn't make any sense. And I think this is respectfully to all these people that believe that. I think it's a giant waste of time. I think concentrating on the shape of the Earth, even if it was flat, who fucking cares?
It means nothing.
Look at what's going on out there. It would be kind of crazy if it was flat. That would kind of like bolster the idea that we're the shit, and that we're just so much more.
Hate when they give me fucking grenades.
Special than everything else in the universe.
I don't ever use them bitches
on a flat plane.
Right.
But
ever.
The whole thing is just so insane. Yeah. Just what we know about the physical universe itself, and about atoms, and just what we know about all the matter that exists in our lives is insane.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, obviously, they haven't tapped into, even forget quantum. Standard physics. They don't comprehend it, and so because of that, they're lost. I mean, satellites don't exist obviously to them. So.
Well, that's a kooky one.
I remember Hurricane Maria.
Satellites don't exist. That's a kooky one. Like, bro, you can watch them.
I mean, it's crazy. Hurricane Maria comes and destroys the Caribbean, and I unfortunately had some loved ones that were involved in that. And I posted a picture of the hurricane because I was raising money for hurricane supplies, and they were commenting and attacking. That's a fake image. It doesn't exist. I'm like,
let me ask you this: how much of that is bullshit? Like, how much of that is government, either entities from other foreign governments, where they jump into these subjects and make people seem really stupid. And when people say something really stupid, if they have one of the things they like to do is put a foreign flag, like an American flag rather, in their little profile.
They always have that,
And they're just saying that dumb as shit.
Yeah.
And I'm going, I don't know if this is a real person. I think it's not. I think it's one of those things that's designed to muddy up any discourse about anything.
Yeah, it's a psyop. I'm telling you, I told people a long time ago this whole flat Earth thing was a CIA psyop.
I think it was.
Drop it in there.
If it wasn't a CIA psyop, it was someone from 4chan that just wanted to be silly and went so hard with explanations that a lot of gullible people without science degrees like me, they went along with it. And it's just one of those things where it's just, man, what a giant waste of time.
It is so much energy. And there's so much more we can learn, like these ancient texts. And people say, why are you always focused on the ancient past? Well, because the past is prologue. If we don't understand what happened back then, we're doomed to continue to repeat these cycles of time that we've been in for quite some time, for eons.
Yeah, I mean, it's just direct evidence
Damn.
that civilizations don't
Stunned his
last and
head.
go kooky.
Yes.
You know, and the things go sideways, and there's natural disasters and wars that reshape landscapes. Like, look, it's all there, and it's happening right now.
Yep.
And if we're not aware of it, it'll happen to us, and then we'll be a footnote of history. We'll be one of those things. There was this amazing country called America. They got crazy. They created all this art and culture, and they did amazing things, but they went fucking
I almost
sideways.
didn't see that
They
shit.
sold out the money. They got involved in wars, and then the next thing you know, the world is operating essentially like communist China. The whole world.
Yeah.
And that's possible too, kids.
Yeah.
All right, you gotta fight for this. 'Cause
Yeah.
whatever this thing is that we have, this is like super fucking unique. But if you don't want to look at the past, if you're not fascinated by ancient structures, if you're not fascinated by what kind of technology and knowledge that they have 4,500 plus years ago to make the pyramids,
Right.
who are these?
Exactly.
What were they doing? How did they do that? And what was that thing? Was that a power plant? I mean, I know you know that.
Oh, yeah.
That is a crazy theory that sounds so. It sounds completely wackadoo. But then when you have it laid out to Christopher, what's his last name?
Done.
Christopher
I just had
Dunn.
him on my podcast a few weeks ago.
I just had him a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
I just had a brain fart. His depiction of the mechanisms that would be involved in turning this giant structure into some sort of a power plant, you hear about it, you go, wait a minute, whoa.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense.
Throwing them
And
bitches.
he and I
Wow.
have very similar theories on how the power generation occurred. And I believe that the Nile
I never had
used
this
to run
before.
up close to the pyramids, and the water would run underneath the pyramid, and that would create something called physiostatic electricity as it ran underneath that magnetized crystal granite. Those ions would pour up into the chamber, move up the grand gallery where there used to be resonating rods, but you can see the slots where the rods used to be. They're removed now, but the slots are still there. Then it would be pushed into the king's chamber where it would be amplified and some type of fusion would take place, then forced up through the apex, and then the crystal granite obelisk around the region would capture that ambient wireless electricity. And then if you had something called a jet, which looks like a Tesla coil, you can capture that energy and you can transfer it into a device for gold electroplating, for any other electrical tools you need, like some of the tools they had to have used to create some of these incredible works of art. We can see the tool marks, so we know they had the tools. But they had wireless electricity way back then.
That's insane. If that's true, that's insane. Because you would think there would be some kind of physical evidence of a device, like something left over, some sort of a, ancient chainsaw,
Right.
like something.
Yeah, they did a great job cleaning up. I mean, they poured sand over Giza to bury another couple of hundred pyramids there at Giza.
Do you think they poured sand? Do you think that's just natural erosion over time? Because when the pyramids existed, it was a very different place, right? Like if you go back before the pyramids, like 9,000 years ago, it was a lush rainforest, right?
Yeah.
And then over time, it became sand. And the same with the entire Sahara Desert, which is really crazy. We're talking about the other day, they find whale bones in the Sahara Desert.
Yeah. I'm going to the Valley of the Whales in a few weeks in Egypt, actually, which is another, it's incredible that there's whale bones out there also. So we're going out there to the Valley of the Whales.
Whale bones.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
But so the point being that this place has changed radically, like absolutely radically over time.
Yeah.
So who knows do you know why?
Ain't no
those things
secret
were
room?
covered up? Is it possible that it was just sand over time?
Well, if you look at the tablets again, they talk about this war, right? And this war that occurred, there's a lot of wars, obviously, but this one particular war, it seems like the same one that damaged the area or the region of the Giza Plateau, also Mohenjo-Daro in the Indus Valley up there by Pakistan. And the reason why it's interesting is if you look at the war in the text and then go to those areas, it looks now almost you can begin to see, oh, wait a minute, it looks like war. Mohenjo-Daro, Indus Valley, the buildings turned to glass. The sand turned to glass, and the bodies are still laying in the street right now today, holding hands, never been scavenged by animals. So
Wait a minute, where is this?
Mohenjo-Daro.
Are there photos that we can look at?
Oh yeah, look it up. Mohenjo-Daro, Indus Valley, dead bodies still laying in the street thousands of years later. And
Nobody
guess what?
just,
Crazy.
they just lay
What
there?
the
No one's
fuck?
covered them up?
Nobody's covered them up. Yeah, when you put a Geiger counter over them, higher than background level radiation. Okay.
Really?
Yeah. And if
But
you-
aren't stones higher than background level radiation?
some stones are, especially like diorite and crystal granite. But these bodies, these are just bones. How come they're higher than background level
I can't wait
radiation?
to see this.
Yeah.
Why haven't I ever heard of this?
Mohenjo-Daro, Mohen. There you go.
Whoa.
Yeah, this is evidence of a nuclear war or nuclear
Go
type
back
of
to the other, that one there. That one's insane.
Yeah. There's bodies that are sitting on the edge of steps next to their own buildings that they lived in. The building is turned to glass. That's 3,000 plus degree temperature weapons fire.
So there's a bunch of people that seem to die all at once, just scattered around?
Yeah.
And what's the conventional explanation for how these people died?
They have no idea. They have zero idea. The only thing that
That was just a couple, Jamie. Go to the other, just the Mohenjo-Daro mythical massacre. So did they think it's a massacre? Is there any?
at
Yeah,
that
the guy's
body.
just laying
Just
there.
laying there. And that building, those stones are vitrified, which means 3,000 plus degree temperature.
Oh shit!
What kind of, what could have caused that level of temperature, an energetic release?
Well, it could have been a low atmosphere asteroid.
It could have been.
You mean
Could have
just
been.
like
that's possible.
Tunguska?
Yeah, it could have been a lot, but then their bones would have been splattered apart and broken into pieces.
Good call. Yeah, that's good call. Yeah, because they don't
Because-
seem to be broken apart.
No, they're not broken apart.
Right.
That impact would have shattered the bones and spread them out over a great
Right, but
distance.
without impact, even if you just look at the one that burst in the atmosphere in Tunguska, it just flattened trees.
Flattened everything.
For,
all the
I
trees.
think it's some insane, like 1,000,000 acres or something crazy.
Yeah, it's incredible. So
How
those
big was
bodies
the
would have been there.
Tunguska explosion? That one's, yeah, so those bodies would be toast.
They'd be
Because the
toast.
trees were ripped apart.
The buildings would have been flattened.
The legs would have flown off.
Right.
There's no way they would just be laying there like that.
Exactly.
That's interesting. And they don't seem to be like chopped up.
No.
Did they have any evidence of stab wounds or anything on them?
They don't have any evidence of any injury, of any kind of attack, or any cutting, or like swords or anything.
They just all got cooked.
Right. And then in the tablets it says that the evil wind moved over the land after they released these weapons. And then Enki goes to his father. Enki goes to his father Anu and says, "Hey, can you stop the evil wind?" Because he had fallen in love with some people, and down there. And he's like, "There's nothing I can do." He said, "Get in your sky ship and forebode." That means get the hell out of here. And he said the people's hair was falling out, their eyes were bleeding, their nose were bleeding, their fingernails were curling off. That sounds like radiation sickness.
So do you think it's radiation sickness that did this to all these people, or was it an impact that did this to all these people?
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
Yeah.
But they're not blown apart.
Right, they're not
That's the
blown
thing.
apart. It seems like whatever struck, or whatever energetic weapon it was, or could have been might not have been a weapon. Whatever it was, it seems like that shockwave reached them at some point, and whatever was in that wave,
Just killed everybody.
that's what it did. Yeah.
And they just don't know what it is. So how does a conventional archaeologist describe it? Do they just say it's a massacre?
They just call it a mythical massacre, and they stay away from it. When you look in the other texts, the Mahabharata and the Bhagavad Gita, you find out about these wars also. They're recorded. They have weapons called the Brahma Astra and the Brahmahanda weapon, and these weapons, what they describe them as doing, duplicate what you saw there.
How do they describe them?
They describe them as weapons that once released can't be revolted or can't be turned back, and that they will obliterate any area, any city. And they say that one of the weapons can destroy any man on 3 worlds. It's crazy stuff. And this is where Oppenheimer got his famous quote when he obviously tested the nuke, right? Now I have become death, destroyer of worlds. He got that from the Mahabharata.
Yeah. What a great quote.
Yeah.
To say after you detonate the first nuclear.
Crazy.
What a great quote.
Yeah.
So the idea is that there were beings that were having wars on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
Were they? Do you believe they were having wars with people that were revolting, or were they having wars with other beings?
They were fighting with each other. And evidence of these wars can be found in the book of Deuteronomy in the modern day Bible. These gods, and I do mean gods with an S, because everywhere in the Bible where it says God singular, it's actually a mistranslation. The actual, if you backwards look up the translation in Arabic and then down to Aramaic and everything else, you find out it's gods plural. They were fighting each other over resources and people and control of the planet. And so that's why in the book of Deuteronomy, God tells people, go to this city, and it's like a far city where they don't even know that these people exist. They go over there to kill, and he says, kill the women, kill the children, and bring the spoils of war back to me. And you see these wars in the Mahabharata, the Bhagavad Gita, the Bible, the Sumerian tablets. And these wars are just nonstop, the Indian Vedas. And it's always about attacking another city. And they even talk about Trojan horse methods to get behind the gates and then to, utilize that to attack and kill and bring back these spoils, which is pretty crazy stuff. It's like they were attacking each other. They had gone awry. They had gone rogue out here on this planet and then began to fight over over people and populations and resources.
And we would hope that we would get past that. But there's no evidence that we have so far. So, like, why would we think that as AI gets implemented and technology escalates and all we're going to be able to do in the future in terms of, you know, go visit other planets and duke it out on other planets.
Right.
Like, there was a whole story today about China just landed on the far side of the moon. So they landed a probe over there.
Yeah, they did.
This is, you know, the China-America war on the moon. Like, what if America claims a spot, and China plants a flag there, and they're like, hey, fuck you, that's ours.
Now that's what happened.
Especially if there's like something on the moon they can mine that's very valuable.
Oh, this stuff up there. I researched the Clementine mission years ago. NASA and the United States military sent a military, at the time, it was a top secret mission called Clementine. It was a low lunar orbiting satellite to go to the dark side of the moon. And when I saw the name Clementine, I knew right away, this thing ain't coming back. And as I began to dig deeper into the declassified documents, of course, it never came back. My darling Clementine, you were lost and gone forever.
Wow.
And I was right. And sure enough, it hit something on the dark side of the moon, which is really just the backside. It's not really dark there, but it hit something, but it sent back about 20 gigs of data. And these images are available to the general public. They've been declassified, and there are strange anomalies on those images. This is pre-Photoshop, pre-everything. Things that shouldn't be there, that look like broken structures and junk and things that just seem to be laying around. So I think it was a reconnaissance mission to gather intel and data, which is probably why China's gone to that far side of the moon as well, because they're probably going to, it's a race to see who can capture ancient technology and then reverse engineer it and then weaponize it.
Well, that's the most fun theory ever. The most fun theory ever is that there's bases on the moon, the dark side of the moon, that aliens have abandoned. Yeah. Jamie, are there any photos of these anomalies? That's the most fun.
I can provide you some with links to the sources too.
Okay. Yeah. That'd be cool. But Jamie will probably find something cool. So what do these structures look like to you when you look at them?
Just dome structures there.
A dome?
Just domes. As a matter of fact, one of the astronauts, I think it was Neil Armstrong, and if you get the declassified from the Freedom of Information Act documents that are the black box audio and the black box redacted text statement from NASA, which is available to the general public, Neil says, look at those convex structures down there. I bet the people in there never get out. And he's talking about dome structures on the moon, and this is an exact statement that was made that's in the black box audio, but I can provide you to the link to that as well.
Okay, so where are these structures? Do you see any of these that you find?
You can look for anomalies on the backside of the moon. We utilize a lot of these on our Facebook groups. On Facebook, we have these groups, anomaly hunting groups. We formed a united family of anomaly hunters, and we've cataloged about 60,000 anomalies now. A lot of them are on the dark side of the moon. But type in Clementine moon photos anomaly. You may be able to find some. If not, I'll send you the link to some resources where you can look them up, and you can take a look at some of these crazy objects that are there.
So is that one right there in the upper right-hand corner?
Yeah, that one's there. Some structure. It kind of look like two pyramids to the left of it. And then another structure which almost seems like it has geometry. Now, underneath that, you see the blur? That looks like obfuscation. Directly, if you go back up to that top right.
Top right?
Yeah, top right, B. Okay, you see that where his hand is? Now move to the left going down slowly. See that? Go back up again. See that? Oh, where his hand is over right now?
Mm-hmm.
It looks like obfuscation. Sometimes you can take these images and put them into a Photoshop and take away the contrast, and all of a sudden structures pop right out. But right above it, you see those shadows of those pyramid structures?
Right above that.
Yeah, you see those pyramids? You can see this dark shadow.
I see two lines.
Okay.
Well, I see the arrow that's pointing to that one straight line, and then I see what looks like two superimposed arrows.
Okay, do you see?
Yeah, those things.
Okay, yeah.
Those are superimposed, right? Like
no, those are shadows.
But look, those are the same things that are in the bottom. Aren't they just pointing at something? Aren't those pointers?
I think they may be highlighting something.
Right, I think it's a cursor mark or something. So what they're saying, I see what they're pointing to. They're pointing to that thing in the upper right-hand corner that kind of looks like a pyramid.
Yeah, you see that? You see that right there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It kind of looks like a pyramid.
It's cleaned up a little bit there in C. C is more clean. But those things don't look like they belong there.
Well, it's hard to tell.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. Now, we have really, that pyramid right there is very famous. That's a very old image. That's on the moon. There should be a link to that. There's a lot of that particular one's been around for years and years and years. It's kind of hard to think that was formed by natural. Now, what happens is we're not saying we know exactly what these things are. We're just saying that we feel like they don't belong there.
Jamie, go back to that image that you were just looking at, the thing that was the pyramid. That one, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, get that one big. That one's crazy.
Yeah.
That one's very strange looking. Because the way it points at the top and has flat sides, like,
Yeah.
you're like, yeah. That's
Right.
if that's real, that's interesting.
Yeah.
But it, that's a good question.
There's a measuring tool. We don't have it, obviously, access to it right
Seems
here.
so
But there is a measuring tool. You can see the shadow, which gives you an idea of the height.
I'd like to see it in real life, though. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, sometimes things fuck with you. It's just, but the angle is so unnatural looking.
Yeah, definitely looks unnatural. We just try to catalog things that appear to be anomalies, things that appear to be out of place.
Right. It could be anything.
And in the Sumerian tablets, there's this time where Enlil takes his son to the moon, and he says, "Well, grab your eagle's mask because you're going to need it." They were referencing that the atmosphere was harsh.
Oh.
So when you see the Anunnaki with the eagle's head, that's actually their helmet. It's a helmet.
So they could breathe their air.
Exactly. They talk about it twice. Once to go to the moon, and the second time to go to Mars.
Yeah, and there's been other depictions of ancient gods and people that look like they're wearing some kind of mask, too.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, one of the cooler ones is the bubble space head looking guys in the cave.
Yes.
And you're like, what did you guys see?
Right.
Like, what did you guys see in the middle of, like, hunting gazelles, trying to stay alive, trying to make a fire, and then you decided to draw that thing?
Right.
What is that?
And we know they can draw because they can show you what a gazelle is. They can show you what cattle is. They can show you what a person looks like.
Yes.
But then they draw that, and you have to think, well, why?
Right. Why is that the only thing you drew that's fake?
Right. Exactly. They
It
just have
looks
time
like-
to waste.
And it looks like a dude in a suit with,
Yeah.
with a helmet on. Like,
Right.
And here's the question. How many different things are visiting us?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and from how many different places?
Oh, a lot.
If
Yeah.
we can't just think everything's going to look exactly the same. That seems just as silly
Mm-hmm.
as thinking that all of our animals should look exactly the same.
Correct. I think we have 3 different levels of visitation going on simultaneously. One is corporeal beings in a physical body, most likely anatomically similar to us, a bilateral bipedal organism with 2 forward-facing eyes, maybe
Do you
1
think
or 2 sets
it's
of
what
hands.
we eventually become?
It's
That
right.
what they are?
It's possible that maybe we already are them. Just Earth could be an abandoned seed colony. Every culture that I've talked to indigenously around the planet all say they were seeded on this planet by Pleiadians or other beings, star brothers in various different places. So
Like the
it's pretty
Dogons.
interesting. Like the Dogons, the Nomo, the Hopi, and the Lakota tribe, the Star Brothers. The Aboriginal elders say that they were seeded here by Pleiadians. All of a sudden, why is everybody having the same story? That we were brought here. We could be genetically, I don't believe we're even from Earth, to be quite honest with you. Our psychotic rhythm doesn't even match Earth's rotation on its axis. It's slightly off. It's actually better tuned to Mars' orbit on its rotation on its own axis than
What do
it
you
is
mean?
Earth.
How's that work?
The psychotic rhythm of the human body, the wake and sleep cycle, is actually more tuned to Mars' rotation on its own axis. A Mars day versus an Earth day, which is pretty weird. That we aren't synced to our own planet after all these thousands,
Is that
maybe
the
hundreds
same
of
as our
thousands of years.
circadian
Circadian rhythm, right?
So how do they calculate it's more tuned to Mars? Like, how does that work?
Well, it's just they geneticists and scientists discovered that our perfect wake and sleep cycle is more tuned to Mars' rotation on its axis, which is about 23 and something minute hours, and versus Earth being 24 hours. And so they said, wow, this is incredible. And the more they tested it and the more they studied it, they realized we're more tuned to the Mars than we are to Earth, which is pretty strange.
We are weird.
Yeah.
We accept shit like leap year.
Right.
Like, what kind of whack calendar do you have where
It was make up stuff.
if some years the month is longer? What the fuck are you
Whoa.
doing?
I know. For
Make
what?
a better calendar. Isn't there a better calendar?
Yeah.
Shouldn't there be like a digital calendar that represents exactly what's going on and not go January? Come on, get the fuck out of here.
I know
It's
it's
so
pretty,
dumb.
pretty bizarre. But you know what's interesting? If you want to say, well, human beings could be aliens, well, actually, every person on this planet is an alien. Even our planet itself is an alien. Scientists just discovered something interesting. I've never talked about this yet on the podcast, and you guys can look this up. So, our Milky Way galaxy
JK
is pretty interesting because it's absorbing another galaxy at this exact moment called the Sagittarius Dwarf Galaxy. Not the Sagittarius constellation, that's something totally different. We are absorbing the Sagittarius dwarf galaxy at this exact moment. People thought for all these decades, looking, or even hundreds of years, looking up in the night sky, seeing that swath of stars going across, that's the Milky Way. Guess what? We've been wrong the whole time. This is now being taught in universities in astrophysics. So what you're looking at the absorption or the merging of the Sagittarius with the Milky Way galaxy. And the exact point where it merges and drops into the Milky Way is right where our solar system is located, which would explain the rogue planets that we know that are out there. There's millions of rogue planets that have no sun. They're just floating free around. There's planets and solar systems that are orbiting far beyond the orbit of Pluto in our inner Oort cloud, admitted by astronomers now. That there's other solar systems within this inner Oort cloud area orbiting our sun every 4,200 years. So all of a sudden, that's Corey Powell, the astronomer at Discovery magazine, by the way, who said that. So this is pretty interesting. We're talking about the fact that our solar system itself is an implant into the Milky Way, that we come from Sagittarius. We're not even part of the Milky Way galaxy.
Cool. Okay. So when they're looking at our own solar system, they have an understanding that there's a thing called the Kuiper Belt that's out there, and there's so many objects in there that are small, and that's one of the reasons why they decided to declassify Pluto as a planet, because there's other objects that look real similar in size.
Maki and all those other planets.
But they think there's something large out there. They think there's something large out there that they haven't yet identified because of the way that gravity is responding. Like, what is the reason?
Well, what happened is they discovered that in some way, millions of years ago, something moved through our solar system and captured its own weird orbit around our sun. And what's crazy is the evidence is in our solar system. So Saturn and Neptune switched locations because of a gravitational field. Uranus is flipped on its side and orbits its equator. It's orbiting north and south, not east and west. And they know that
like it got hit,
or something gravitationally just tugged at it so hard that it flipped sideways.
It never stops.
Never stopped. And it moved through our solar system way out beyond the orbit of Pluto, and this thing captured its own orbit. This is in the Enuma Elish in the 7 Tablets of Creation. This exact process that's been described now by astrophysicists and astronomers is in ancient text that we can read, and we can see, oh my God, this is exactly what this text is saying. It's talking about the creation of our solar system. It even talks about the creation of Earth in that text. So it says that when Marduk, aka Nibiru, a moon of Nibiru, crashed into Tiamat, it broke into pieces and became the hammered bracelet. That's the asteroid belt. One giant chunk swung away, recoalesced with everything water, land, and organic material needed for life, and became the Earth, tugging with it the moon. So it's pretty crazy that the creation of this planet itself, and it says that it pushed, the net force pushed Mercury closer to the sun and pushed Venus closer to the sun, and then we took the third spot in place around our orbit around our sun. And then of course we have Mars, which used to be a moon, a habitable moon of Tiamat, a planet that was 4 to 6 times larger than Earth, and slung into this crazy orbit. That's why Mars has this weird orbit, and you have to rendezvous with it. If you're NASA or anybody trying to rendezvous with Mars, every 2 years when it's in apogee or perigee, you have to, with apogee or perigee, one of them is further away than the other. One is 80 million miles and the other one's closer. So if you rendezvous every 2 years, you can capture the orbit of Mars, and you can actually get there in 4 months. And then they looked at it and said, wow, they meaning astrophysicists, this looks like this Mars wasn't originally in this type of orbit. It must have been orbiting something else in our solar system, which it was. One side is charred black and the other side is smooth. So the side where Tiamat exploded, those chunks hit Mars on one side, created a very charged side, and the other side is the smoothest surface in the solar system, which is because of the global flood that created. And then Mars' axis on its equator is tilted 45 degrees on its axis, which means the mass shifted it down 45 degrees. They had a major global catastrophe there on Mars. And then after Mars, you have another little planet that survived called Ceres, C-E-R-E-S, which is also a result of this Tiamat exploding. People don't even talk about Ceres. It has the most fresh water out of any other planet in our solar system. More
and
fresh water.
Where's its location?
That's the next planet after Mars, Ceres.
Really?
C-E-R-E-S.
How big is it?
It's
like Pluto size?
It's about maybe 2/3 smaller than Mars. And guess
it's a
what?
dwarf planet. So they don't. It follows an orbit between Mars and Jupiter near the middle of the asteroid belt with an orbital period. Click on that thing.
When they flew by it.
You heard about this before? I didn't know there was another planet out there.
Listen, when they flew by it a few years ago, the lights were on. They sent a probe out there.
What?
The lights were on. And so they started trying to say it was ice particles glistening in the sunlight. So when they got to the dark side, guess what? The lights were on the dark side. So they couldn't use the ice particle explanation anymore. So they just said, we don't know what it is.
What? Ceres' small size means that even at its brightest, it's too dim to be seen by the naked eye, except under extremely dark skies. Its apparent magnitude ranges from 6.7 to 9.3, peaking in opposition when it's closest to Earth. Once every 15 to 16 months in, how do you say that word? Synodic?
I don't know where you're at now.
16th month synodic period. Do you know?
Oh, yeah, synodic. Yeah.
Synodic period. As a result, synodic. As a result, its surface features are barely visible even with the most powerful telescopes, and little was known about it until the robotic NASA spacecraft Dawn approached Ceres for its orbital mission in 2015.
Mm-hmm. And we have high-resolution images of the surface. There are strange things there as well, which is pretty crazy. So,
what are the images of the surface?
You have to go to nasa.gov and go to the Dawn images, and you can download, or sometimes the European Space Agency has them as well, ES. And then you can grab those images. It's pretty crazy. Some things just don't look right there, but there's a lot.
What doesn't look right?
Well, if you look at Mohenjo-Daro or areas of Egypt, that's or even Iraq, where it used to be Samaria, structures that used to be there that are now worn down and weathered, they have similar looks there. Similar things they look similar there. Not saying that they are. I'm just saying that they look strange. Some things look strange.
We have a lot of strange things on Earth that are natural.
That's true. We sure do. We even have octagons and straight lines on Earth that are natural as well.
That was one of the craziest ones that Terrence brought up, was the octagon on Saturn.
Yeah.
Was it Saturn?
It's Saturn.
Yeah, Saturn. That when you look at the octagon on Saturn, but it's mimicked in the model that they created by using the whole idea that he really blew my mind with was the Goldilocks zone idea. Mm-hmm. That planets reach a certain distance from the sun, and that's when life starts happening. And this is a normal force that happens everywhere in the universe. And as time goes on, that planet's going to get further and further from the sun, and then it's going to lose its ability to do that. And then a new planet moves in the Goldilocks zone. And that is also going to become like us. Mm-hmm. And then, so if you are following this idea makes sense. It means that this is just this sort of natural process that these intelligent creatures go through. And even though we're looking at like AI and we're looking at technology, like, oh my God, we can't even be people anymore. Well, guess what? We can't be people anymore,
right?
Because we're not going to make it if we don't.
Yeah.
There's a timeline. It seems like you're only going to live 100 years, so it's no big deal. But humans, if we keep going like a few million years, we're gonna have a real problem.
Yeah.
A billion years from now, we're not gonna be around anymore.
No.
And then there's gonna come a time where the sun doesn't exist anymore.
Exactly.
So if you get so intelligent that you can escape the boundaries of the physical world, and you can move throughout the cosmos wherever you want, then you've escaped.
Right.
You've escaped this fear. But it's almost like there's an intelligence test.
Yeah.
An intelligence test that life goes through. Like, we're going to give you all the tools, just like you're in the womb. You're in the womb of Mother Earth. We're going to give you all the tools, but you got to get out of the house.
Yeah.
At a certain point in time, you got to get out of the house. You're 24, you're still living at home? Get the fuck out of the house.
They're waiting for us to grow up.
Yeah.
This what human beings are like babies right now. It's a civilization trying to learn how to walk. And right now we're barely crawling, and then we plop down on our stomach and everybody screams and cries. But we're getting to the point eventually where we'll go to the edge of a table and pull ourselves up. And then we'll take a couple of steps, and then we'll fall again. Everybody will think it's all over. Oh my God, we were doing so good, and it collapsed again. But no, that's just a fall. The baby will pull itself back up. It'll cry less, and it'll take more steps until it falls again, until it can get this controlled fall. And that's the definition of walking, controlling your fall. So we're in that process now. Like you said, this is a proving ground for us to be able to develop consciously, spiritually, ascend to higher levels. And eventually, I'm pretty optimistic for mankind that we will get through this period.
Bro, I move.
I love when people are optimistic, because I'm always like, I don't know which one to go. I tend to be optimistic.
Well, it proves what these ancient beings were doing. They were creating breakaway civilizations throughout the entire Milky Way galaxy because of what you just said. The fact that, planets won't be habitable forever. Even Earth. Let's say Earth never moved and stayed right where it's at in the Goldilocks zone. We're going to lose our control over the weather because the moon is moving away at a few centimeters every single year. And as the moon backs off of Earth, our weather patterns are going to get more hectic and chaotic, and the wobble is going to be uncontrollable to the point where life won't be able to exist. Not our kind of life won't be able to exist on this planet. So just losing the moon alone in a few million years is going to destroy us. So we have to create breakaway civilizations. We have to get out of here, which is what all these other advanced civilizations in these ancient texts have done.
Well, it only makes sense if Terrence is correct about this idea of the Goldilocks zone. It only makes sense. And if there are other planets somewhere in another galaxy or ours that have the same exact sort of features, water, the same temperature, the same mixture of amino acids and whatever the hell else is here that makes life, and then it happens there too, it just makes sense that some places are going to be more stable, so they're going to have less natural disasters, so like people will evolve faster and longer, they'll exist longer. But then, you know, there's the argument that the natural disasters are actually good, because the natural disasters knock us back down. If we're about to destroy everything, knock us back down to some much more primitive version of ourselves, and then we have to rebuild society again over thousands of years, which to the universe is the blink of an eye.
That's a blink of an eye. You're right. That's exactly what happened in the Emerald Tablets. You know, 36,000 years ago, Thoth he arrives in this place called the land of Kem, ancient Kemet, before it was known as Egypt. His father sent them on a mission to rebuild civilization back up to a high level, meaning that it already was at a high level prior to this flood situation. And he says he gets into the great ship of the master and he takes off into the sky until the earth disappears. And then he goes to the plane appointed and he sees beneath him the children of the land of Kem. And he descends down. He doesn't sail in, he descends down. And when the ship lands, he opens his doors and he comes out with his crew. And he says the barbarians came at him to attack him with cudgels and spears. He says, I raised my staff and sent out a ray of vibrations, stopping him still as fragments of stone of the mountain. So he had a stun gun. He had a weapon that was, not lethal, non-lethal weapon that can freeze you in your tracks. And we have something just like that now in the military called the active denial system. They can send a beam at a crowd coming to attack and make them stop still right in their tracks. They can make you feel like you're on fire, make you feel like you want to vomit. They can even put voices in your head. They can make you be in extreme pain. It's called the active denial system. So he's talking about technology back then that we have right now.
Could you go look up that? Because do you think that's what that Havana syndrome thing is?
It's possible, man. This thing, if you put it above, like in the sky, and aim it at an area and the beam spreads a little bit, you can create mass illness, mass sickness, mass hysteria. You can have everyone running around thinking that they've got somebody talking to them and commanding them to do certain things. It's out of control. This weapon can be fully weaponized in a lethal way, in a way that can make people become psychotic. You can make somebody think they're burning it on fire.
Whoa. Active denial system demo. Can we listen to what this guy's saying?
It can deter individuals on a military perimeter all the way up to a riotous crowd, all without permanent harm.
It only penetrates 1/64 of an inch of your skin, goes very shallow into where your nerve receptors are.
They can't take the pain.
There's no, no permanent injury caused by it.
So what does it do to them?
Send a frequency, a beam of frequency, just like Thoth says in the Emerald Tablets. I put this in my book because it's important.
Any of the guests volunteer to test out its effectiveness and safety, including the Assistant Commandant of the Marine Corps.
Wow, he said fuck it. He said fuck it.
Assistant Secretary of the Navy. Most described it as feeling like a hot oven or grill being opened up.
It is something that...
Wow.
Yeah. So that's what he used on them thousands of years ago.
Holy shit.
Or something like
fuck?
2012? Yeah. Oh, now they turned you into a statue. Statue.
Absolutely.
Now it's over. In Medusa.
Yeah.
Medusa.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Same type of technology.
What do you think Medusa was?
Frequency technology.
Imagine that. Imagine that story. We always thought that was just some crazy story.
Yeah.
But imagine there's a technology back then that can actually turn you into stone.
Right.
Now that we know that people can do things like that, and then we would imagine 1,000 years of evolution, 10,000, 500,000, whatever these people are, whatever these things are that have the ability. It's kind of disappointing that they're still waging war, though. I got to tell you that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's a bummer.
It's a real archaic mindset. You know, we have to find a way to rise above. This is why we need to understand exactly what happened. And how do we overcome what's been embedded into our epigenetic memories? Because we're suffering from epigenetic mental hysteria, which is psychosis, and this war psychosis. We've been programmed as human beings to have consumption and fighting and competition over collaboration.
Yeah.
Everything is designed to keep us separate. Divide and conquer is the main mission, and it works so well for so many thousands of years. And this divide and conquer tactic that's been burnt into our DNA and our code has put us in a situation where we are not advancing as we should be. We're getting now this technology leaked out to us, and yes, that's advancing pretty fast. But consciously and spiritually, we're just holding us back. Because everyone's putting themselves in boxes and saying, I'm a part of this thing and I'm a part of that thing, and then we don't work together.
No, that's such an important point, and it needs to be drilled into people's heads.
Yeah.
We're distracting ourselves by getting involved in these stupid arguments over stupid things.
Right.
When there's really important issues with the world, and those aren't being addressed. And one of the big ones is, how do you stop people from killing each other? How do you stop war? How do we stop this insane practice of having groups of people go up against groups of people they never even met and killing them?
Exactly.
And then we're all okay with this. We talk about how this is normal and this has to be done, and war is ugly and it's unfortunate, but we have to do it. Like, okay, are you fucking sure? Who's pulling the strings here?
People with $10,000 suits that don't get on the front line.
Yeah.
They send poor kids and young men and women to die.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
And it's all about money.
It's all about money. And, Smedley Butler wrote about it in 1933.
War's a racket.
Yeah.
That's right.
You read that. Read that from 1933, folks. And this was a general who, was he a general? What was his rank? Yeah. He was retiring, and he wrote this piece about how he thought he was preserving democracy. He was really just making the place safe for bankers.
Yep.
It's an ugly business that Eisenhower tried to warn us about in his leaving from office speech.
That's right.
When he stepped down, or when he was no longer the president, he left office and gave a speech about warning about the military-industrial complex and its influence.
He sure did.
And I don't think they knew back then that people would be able to have YouTube and just watch that.
Yeah.
And if that's how they did it back then, imagine how good they are at it now.
Oh man, they're masters at neuroscience. Applying neuroscience to the general population, they are masters at it. And they know how to get into the psyche of a human being, and they know how to turn us against each other, while they themselves chop it all up. Like I always say, there is no Democrat or Republican. Doesn't exist. The only thing that exists is a group of elite oligarchs that torture men, women, and children worldwide. That exists. They capitalize and monetize us, and they put their boot on our neck. But you think when it's left wing and a right wing, I think it's the same bird.
They're strong as hell.
It's all just money.
One shot.
It's all money. And they use social issues, whatever they are, whether it's Christianity or abortion rights or whatever it is, they just use those. It's like little moves that they put in their little game.
Yep.
And really what it's about is enriching themselves and staying in power. And the best way to stay in power is control narratives and to control influence and make people believe a very specific thing and drill it into their head. But the problem is, like, I think human beings are more awake now than ever before, and they know this game now.
Yeah.
At least a large number of us know this game.
It's shifting so fast.
Yeah.
It's shifting like incredibly fast, which is great.
How old are you, Billy?
I'll be 53 in September.
You look great.
Thanks, man.
So you and I are basically close to the same age. I'm 56. And when we were kids, this version of the world was never discussed. You would have to be a complete kook to think that money is why wars are started. Oh, come on. No one would ever do that.
Right.
You would be a complete kook to think that the pharmaceutical drug companies lie about their drugs. What are you talking about? They can't do that. They would be arrested.
Yeah.
You'd be a kook.
Yeah.
And now, especially after the pandemic, that's how everybody feels. And watching these wars go on between Ukraine and Russia and Palestine and Israel, you're like, what the fuck is going on?
In the 21st century, this is still happening right now.
In large scale. And people are having debate over the acceptable amount of numbers of women and children that are allowed to die in a war.
Right. It's insane. It's insanity.
Insane.
Earth is, partly
definitely.
is a giant mental facility. Mental health is a major issue on this planet. When a person can look at someone and say they deserve to die because of their beliefs or their non-belief, that's a major problem. That's a sign of mental illness.
It's also a sign of like a spoiled child. It's almost like we skipped the line. Right, we didn't pay our dues to become people. We got turned into people.
You're right.
Because anthropologists are looking at chimpanzees now, and they're looking at them saying they're entering into the Stone Age.
Yeah.
Like they're using tools now. Now, if you watch that same chimpanzee and you went a few million years in the future, who knows what it looks like? Probably looks like an upward looking human that has much more intricate tools. Or who knows if it's created stone weapons, structures, houses. They may develop a language.
True.
You could watch chimpanzees over the course of evolution, but that's too slow.
Yeah.
And so if you were another highly intelligent being from another planet, they're gonna get it.
Give them a little something.
Give them a little something.
And the evidence of that is in a tablet called the Myth of Adapa, which means first man. The Myth of Adapa, an ancient Sumerian text. It's a tablet. And in this tablet, you can buy the book Myth of Adapa on Amazon. You can read it for yourself, completely translated. And translated by scholars, by the way. And it's talking about the fact that according to the Anunnaki, human beings were created in a way that genetically we were supposed to become more superior than them. They didn't know this was going to happen. And Lil was angry at his brother Enki because Enki put a little extra in the sauce. Yeah, a little extra. And he said that the mysteries to unlock the secrets of the universe is hidden within our bodies, and that we ourselves can rise to be even higher than them. This is a major thing to be putting into text like this. Now, who sits around and writes this?
How do they specifically describe that?
They describe it just like that. It says that human beings, or man, Adapa was created to be even higher than us, and that all the secrets of the universe, the mysteries, are within our body. And I believe that because when I started studying DNA, that took me into a whole DNA study. I discovered this scientist called George Church. And he created this ebook that he was able to take from a digital format, and he was able to download it onto 1 drop, 1 gram of DNA, a digital book. He converted it from AC's, T's, and G's into from zeros and ones. He converted it from zeros and ones into AC's, T's, and G's. Read, write, put it on the DNA. Then he said, "Wow, this is incredible. DNA can store information in a volume." Then he said, "Okay, this is what we're going to do. Let's replicate this book." So he replicated the book 80 billion times on 1 gram of DNA. And this is not just a regular ebook. This book had graphics and images and everything else in it. So then he said, let's see if we can get it back. So he converted, created a read write again. He converted it from AC's, T's, and G's back to zeros and ones and uploaded it back to the server. So now he knows that DNA can upload and download information. Crazy. Whoa. So now they said, okay, well, how much data can be stored on 1 drop? Over 433 petabytes of data. A petabyte is 1,000 terabytes.
What an unfortunate name.
I know, right? I know, that's a crazy name. I was like, why'd y'all name it this? Petabyte. But anyway. Yeah, so they said, now they discovered recently on holmium atoms, scientists have now written information, data onto an individual holmium atom. And they discovered that we can store information they can rewrite directly onto the surface of an actual atom. Now, think about that for a second.
Oh my God.
So they're saying that a human body can store 13.5 billion years or roughly of data, which is roughly around the time they believe the universe probably exists. So that Myth of Adapa text could be accurate. The secrets of the universe is probably encoded into our body because we're just recycled atoms.
Right. And then as we evolve technologically and biologically, we develop a higher and higher ability to access that information.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. The longer we go, the more we're able to tap into this information, tap into who we truly are. We'll begin to walk in our power, look inside, go to inner space, not outer space. We'll begin to tap into this. And they discovered now that junk DNA is no longer junk. They're taking the term junk off of it, that it really has function. It always had function. It was never junk. That's just a word to keep us programmed to thinking that we're junk.
Well, I think it was a way for them to explain something that they couldn't explain.
Right. But when you use the word junk,
it's a weird word.
If you understand affirmations, you know, I would never call myself junk. So that's a weird way to do it. But now they're finding out that's you know, and again, in the Myth of Adapa, it's saying that we're going to tap into this. So I believe that all of our innate abilities that we used to have are going to start to come back over time. Like accessing the magnetic field with the magnetite crystals in our brains. We all have billions of magnetite crystals in our brains, and they put a guy into a laboratory, and they put a giant bar magnet and moved it around the room, and they put an EEG cap on him and a scanner, and they saw that they were orienting themselves to the magnetic field. So we still have the ability to navigate magnetic fields. We just don't even know it. We're unaware of it.
Well, we know it exists in ours.
Yeah. So we have it in our body as well. So all these things are going to begin to come back.
There's so little true understanding of like how birds migrate. like how they all know when to do it, what is calling them, what a very specific direction. Are they using landmarks on the ground? Are they just using some sort of a magnetic field? Are they just tuned in to where the North Pole is? And what are they doing?
Yeah.
How are they doing it?
Incredible.
What is the organ that's
Right.
allowing them to do it?
Yeah.
Is that something that humans have, and it went away, just like I can't remember anybody's phone number anymore?
Right.
You know, I used to have so many phone numbers in my head.
We had to have them because we're
Yeah.
70s babies.
Yeah.
Oh, you may
I'm
be
a
60,
60s
not
baby.
60. Yeah, I'm 70, 71. But yeah, but what happened was, if you look at the tablets again, this is why I love these tablets, man. They talk about the fact that they had created this being, not created from scratch, but genetically modified. They add their essence to it, is what they say, added our essence. So by adding the essence, you can see where all of a sudden maybe our ancestors were in tune with the magnetic field and were able to communicate psychopathically, maybe even had telekinesis and these other innate abilities, weren't technologically advanced, but maybe more spiritually advanced. And they tinkered with us and took away our memory, took away our ability to tap into that so we can focus solely on them.
Well, I guess if you were gonna, have you ever seen the movie Prometheus?
Oh, yeah.
When the alien dies and its DNA goes into the water.
Yeah.
If you were gonna play a real long game and seed life in the universe, and then you were gonna, especially with us, if you were gonna create something that's very sophisticated and encode inside of it enough information that they can figure out everything.
Yeah.
It's gonna take time. So you have to earn this information, but it's in there. It's such a compelling theory. The problem is I get so wrapped up in these that I hope they're true. When I hope they're true, I stop thinking critically. Because I'm like, that's the most fun. It's the most fun to think that we were created by aliens. The most fun to think there's a base on the north side of the moon. Right. But the undeniable stuff that, to me, is equally compelling, I think, even than the aliens, is like, how did they make the pyramids? Who did that?
Yeah.
Who did that, and what was that culture like?
Right.
Like, if I could go one place, I would go to Egypt, Giza, when it's thriving.
Yeah.
When it's thriving, whatever, I don't even know what the number is.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a John Anthony West number or if it's a, more conventional number of 4,000, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Just get me there.
Right.
Let me see what that was. What were you guys doing? How the fuck did you make that thing? How did you get those stones from 500 miles away? How did you cut them so perfectly? How did you get them all the way up in the ceiling of this giant king's chamber? What was that damn thing? Why did it have a gold cap on the top?
Right.
Like, what did you guys do? How did you make the gold cap?
Yeah.
Like, what did you guys do?
Wow. I go with the John Anthony West theory. I'm closer to his time frames.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, John Anthony West.
He was amazing.
Amazing man. Wow.
Yeah, Magical Egypt, folks. It's I think there's 2 versions of the video series that you can get online. Go find it. It's incredible. The first one I watched like 10 times.
Yeah.
I was like, this is just forget about speculation, forget about like timelines, just the undeniable majesty of the construction of those structures and the statues and like what they built was like, my God, like
incredible.
Nothing else.
Yeah.
Like nothing else in the world. No one's even a distant second place.
No, not even close.
Egypt
wow.
Egypt can just stand above all of it, and it was so long ago.
Yeah, it's super ancient. And what I like about John Anthony West, his theory aligns with the Emerald Tablets date range, because when he talks about the Great Sphinx being built 2 processional periods back, it takes it back to around 38,000 years ago, around the same time that Thoth claims to have written the Emerald Tablets. And in these tablets, he talks about building the Great Pyramid. He said, "Builded I the Great Pyramid, patterned after Earth's force, so that it too might remain through the ages." So he claims to be the master architect of the structure of the Great Pyramid. And what he did was he incorporated into it advanced science. It's not just a power generator. It's also, in my opinion, it also could be a multifunctional stone computer. Okay? And this thing calculates the orbits of the planets in the inner solar system, which is crazy.
How's it do that?
Matter of fact, well, if I have some, can I open up this, just read some notes?
Yeah,
I got some
definitely.
incredible notes that I did, some math that I did
I'm
years
amazed at
ago.
how much you don't need notes. There's a few people that come on this podcast that blow me away without notes. Like Terrence is one of them.
Yeah, he's one of them. Yeah.
Rhonda Patrick, she's
Yeah.
another one of them.
I just want to get the numbers exact,
Okay.
So one thing, the equatorial circumference of the Earth can be calculated by the Great Pyramid, because the Great Pyramid itself is 1 by 43,200 scaled down. So if you take the Great Pyramid and scale it up 43,200 times, it fits directly inside the sphere of the Earth, and it touches the equator. Okay.
So meaning the dimensions of how the angles of it would fit inside of a sphere.
Inside of a
perfectly.
sphere. It's a representation of the Earth in a pyramidal format. Okay. That's crazy. And if you multiply that by the base perimeter, you get 24,734.94 miles, which is roughly within 170 miles of the circumference of the planet Earth itself. Okay, which is wild. You can also calculate the speed of the Earth around the sun. So the Great Pyramid, basically you take a pyramid inch times 10 to the 8th power. It equals the speed of Earth around the sun. That's wild.
The problem with these kind of calculations is Flint Dibble made note of this, that you could take that and you could do that with a lot of different things. Like, what was the one he used for 420? Yeah, he's a bunch of different funny ones.
420,
yeah,
weed day?
the weed day, yeah. He was explaining how you take these arbitrary precession of the equinox numbers, and you could multiply them times like whatever you want. You could get a bunch of different results, like based on what you wanted the result to be, not based on the actual.
Some of them are hard to do. Check this out. Forget about multiplying things. What about taking the fact that the pyramid, the Great Pyramid, is located at the center of land mass on Earth, not the center of the Earth, the center of land mass. Now, the only way you can put the pyramid at the center of landmass is you have to have a polar orbiting satellite. If we were to do it today, a polar orbiting satellite that's orbiting this way, and as it spins on its axis, you're taking swaths of data, and you're calculating the landmass, and then you're going to say, okay, this is the center point for landmass, and you put it there.
So the center point for landmass being you take the surface of the Earth, what percentage of it is covered with water, where the ground is,
right,
and then you find the center of where the most ground is, and that's where the pyramid is.
Exactly. The next thing is taking all the average heights of all the peaks on Earth and then dividing that to get the average height and making that the height of the Great Pyramid. Now, you can't just randomly calculate those numbers, okay?
That's the average height of all the mountains and the peaks on Earth?
That's right.
Wow.
That's right, and that's an absolute fact. The Grand Gallery, the latitude of the Grand Gallery inside the Great Pyramid leading into the King's Chamber, the latitude are the exact digits of the speed of light in meters per second. You can't just randomly calculate that, man.
Well, you can't just get those stones. I mean, there's not one thing about it. I mean, you can get real crazy with numbers and mathematics, but there's not one thing about it that's not completely insane. Like, every single aspect of it is completely insane. The fact that we still will try to pretend today that it's not impressive, or that it was impressive, but that they did it with sand, and they did it with, like, how do you know?
Well,
like,
you would need more mud. The mud ramp theory, you would need more mud in mass than the pyramid itself. So that's a farce.
The mud thing, I mean, it's like, just show me one.
Yeah.
Show me one.
Well, here's the problem with that mud ramp theory. I don't think people realize, I take people on tour to the pyramid every single year. I take people on a huge tour. Last year we had 140 people on tour in Egypt for 12 days or whatever it was. But the pyramid itself, each individual stone at the pyramid, each individual stone at the pyramid is a different shape and size. There are no two stones that are perfectly the same. Each stone fits in an interlocking format. So you can't say, go over here and cut these stones, we're going to bring them over here and we're going to throw up this pyramid. It doesn't work that way. Each stone is made individually, specifically for the location that it's exactly in.
Because they all have to be at an angle. Because they're all going up towards this angle, so everyone has to be cut perfect.
Exactly. So they're interlocking stones, and there's no way to say, just cut this cookie cutter out, and we're going to bring him and hoist him in the spot.
And all of them are perfect.
All of them. And if you accidentally cut the wrong size, or you're off by a few inches, you can't make the trip. You can spend a week or two getting a stone to a location that don't fit. It doesn't make any sense. They had foreknowledge. People don't take the amount of resources, energy, effort that it took to build that structure and then guessing that it will work out in the end. You only build that if you have a complete blueprint and you've got proven facts, right? You have proof of concept that it works and you've done this before.
Now, what do you think about the other pyramids that are wonky? Like the ones that aren't perfect? Do you think that they were trying to duplicate the Great Pyramid? Do you think they were trying to make their own?
The deeper you go into antiquity, the more perfect construction was. The further you come forward in time, the more wonky and crazy things are and begin to fall apart.
So do you think they just forgot how to do it?
The knowledge was lost. You can see the evidence of the knowledge. By the time we got to Alexander the Great, have you ever been to Alexandria?
No.
I thought I was going to go see this incredible place. It looks like a bunch of crap, a bunch of piled up rocks, buildings leaning on each other, even the people living in apartments that are leaning, buildings leaning.
Oh, wow.
Everything there looks just, the stones are small. I could pick up those stones with my own hands. They tried to duplicate the majesty of ancient Egypt, but they didn't even come close.
It's just so bizarre that one civilization got so much further than everybody else.
Yeah.
And no one really knows exactly how they did it.
Right. Light years ahead.
Now, when you hear the carbon dating of the Great Pyramid, what is your take on that? Because the radiocarbon dating is 2,500 BC. Right? That's what they think.
I just don't believe it.
Why is that?
Well, first of all, the way that the structure is made, if you look at other structures made in that same time frame, they don't have the same majesty. They don't have the same level of construction. They don't have the same capability of withstanding time.
Right.
So why are these falling apart, but this one isn't falling apart? And
but that's not necessarily because look, you can have a shitty house today, and you can live right next to Jeff Bezos' house.
That's very true.
You know, I mean, it's just there's going to be different cultures and different abilities and you know different craftsmen.
Yeah, within the same region. I'm talking about within the same area.
Yeah, but even in the same area, you're always going to have people that suck.
If you look at the subterranean shaft, I don't know if you've ever been there. It descends beneath the Great Pyramid down into the ground on a specific angle of about 65 meters. And there's another 30-meter drop straight beneath that.
And this is where Christopher Dunn has hypothesized that there was something that was creating a frequency down there, something that like pounds in the earth, creates a very specific frequency and a very specific vibration that goes through the entire stone structure, which theoretically could work.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And then this whole thing about using different chemicals in these shafts that leak through the limestone, and that limestone is porous, and you would have a specific amount of thickness with limestone, so you'd know exactly how much chemicals to put in the shafts. And the shafts did exist, and they did have openings to them, and they were sealed. You could open them up and dump things into them, and then the passageway that goes into the King's Chamber, the so-called King's Chamber, and that it has opening shafts that go to the heavens.
Yes, they do. And I think I know why. My hypothesis on those shafts is, well, you look at the way the pyramid is designed, the Queen's Chamber is technology. It seems to be like an electrolysis generating machine to extract hydrogen from the water. And Chris Dunn had the same, pretty close to the same hypothesis I had with that. Now, why hydrogen? It's the most abundant element in the universe. And right now, today, we try to communicate with ET on the hydrogen frequency. Now, those shafts, imagine on certain alignments, we know for a fact that pyramid aligns with specific planets or stars. Orion, Aldebaran, Draco, these alignments. And then these shafts would send out this hydrogen frequency, potentially on my hypothesis, around those alignments. Why? For communication purposes. Updates on this breakaway civilization. Because I believe there was an ancient galactic war, which I talk about in my show, my docuseries, Anunnaki. And this ancient war created these space refugees, which then spread out around the Milky Way. Earth just happens to be one of the breakaway civilizations.
It's not outside the realm of possibility when you think about what we're doing. And if we get more advanced and do this better, that we could be still involved in very similar types of activities throughout the galaxy.
Yeah.
It sounds terrible, but that just might be how things get done. Unfortunately, war might just be a part of our essence, and it might be a part of the whole cosmic balance of good and evil. The shifting of the winds, and this, of the tides coming in and coming out. This is like this. It needs good and bad. It needs all these things.
Yeah. Well, in the biblical text, God says in Isaiah, "I create the good and I create the evil. Do what I say, is the Lord."
Right.
Yes, he's saying he creates good and evil. Yin and yang is what they call in ancient cultures, right? Good and evil, dark and light, it's all the same thing.
It's the most fascinating subject to me. It really is. The most fascinating subject is when I hear stories from the Bible or the Bhagavad Gita or the Talmud, any stories like what was the origin? What were they trying to say? What were they documenting? What were they sharing in an oral tradition of the history of people and of the earth and of the heavens themselves? Like, what were they sharing? What were those things? How much of it was myth? How much of it was someone misinterpreted the original story and watered it down? But at the beginning of it, even at the beginning, there was light. Just it's literally like the Big Bang.
Yeah.
It's literally describing what the current scientists believe happened. And then you think about these stories of floods, and then we know there's evidence, like the Randall Carlson work, all his work on the flooding that existed, where you could see these like enormous channels cut through, that it is indicative of just insane amounts of water over a short period of time. And when he describes that, you're like, what? And then the fact that we know that there's asteroid impacts, there's comet impacts, and that the ice age ended abruptly, and that all these areas, like this is where it was, this is where it went down, and this might be every fucking story that you've heard from the beginning of time. Epic of Gilgamesh, Noah and the Ark, all these stories.
Yeah, all of it. I mean, obviously, the Noah story is inside of the Epic of Gilgamesh.
Yeah.
I believe that is a result of the Younger Dryas incident. In the Epic of Atrahasis, there is this strike of this either an asteroid or whatever it is that's going to hit. It doesn't specifically say, but they had the ability to stop it. And there's this other disc that has cuneiform writing on it, which is supposedly the direction that this thing took course through space to hit Earth. And so it was kind of known that this was going to happen. And everywhere you look on the Earth around that same time period that this is estimated to happen, megalithic construction stopped. What happened that everyone stopped at the same time? Unfinished in the quarry, unfinished in the quarry over here, unfinished in the quarry. All of a sudden around the entire planet, everything is unfinished. Something happened globally that made people stop working on these structures and go to maybe Darren Kuyu underground base, or in the Americas, that, you know, they say that the ant people, the Hopi say the ant people took them under. If you couldn't go under and save yourself, you had a ship. We know that Ziusudra in the Epic of Gilgamesh was told how to build the ship, but it wasn't a boat like what we know was said in the Bible. It was actually a disc he was told to build. We found the tablet for that, so we have the tablet in the British Museum. It was an actual disc that looked like pie sections on the inside. And he was told to collect his local flora and fauna and his local livestock, not two of every kind in the world. He didn't get 2 ticks and 2 fleas and 2. It didn't happen. You know, he had local livestock, but he built a disc, not a ship, which is pretty interesting. But yeah, these stories are everywhere. You know, it's pretty crazy.
It is crazy, and it's just so strange when you see resistance to the idea, while there's still real evidence of this impact. Once there was real evidence of the impact, once the Younger Dryas impact theory started being discussed by legitimate scientists, and they recognized when they're doing these core samples that they find nuclear glass, and they find all of these things like iridium that are very common in space, very rare on Earth, all this very thin layer. It's real clear there's a time where all this shit goes down.
Yeah, it happened.
And there's also mass die-offs in places. And my friend John Reeves, have you ever seen the Alaska Boneyard on Instagram?
No, I haven't seen that one. Yeah. Wow.
Jamie, pull that up. So he has this piece of land, and he's a gold miner in Alaska. He's a fucking great character. And he has this amazing piece of land that they pulled out thousands of bones and tusks and woolly mammoths and animals that aren't, the Boneyard Alaska is his Instagram, things that weren't even supposed to exist in that area.
Yeah.
They have absolute proof that these things existed.
Right.
Different cats and short-faced bears and all kinds of shit. So they're pulling things out every day. He just texted me the other day, asked me to come out and blow out a mastodon bone. I can't make it, bro. I'm busy, but I love this dude.
Yeah.
And what he's doing up there is all his.
Yeah.
This is his property.
Incredible.
So he's got it all documented. He's got warehouses. He spent millions of dollars doing all this stuff.
Yeah.
And his one area is only a few acres, man.
Wow.
It's only a few acres.
So imagine what's really up there.
Imagine what's really up there.
Yeah.
And what he thinks is that there was a mass die-off that probably happened instantaneously, and all these things got swept in the water and washed down into this one particular area where they collected, and that's where he's finding them.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
So he's got 2 very specific areas that aren't that big.
Yeah.
Just a few acres each. I think the biggest one is like 6 acres. It's crazy. And so they're using these high-pressure hoses, and they shoot into the permafrost, and they slow, because it's, it's cold. It's
you gotta melt
there.
it.
So everything is just frozen into the ground.
Right.
So they blast into the permafrost and start to loosen things up. And show some of the images of the warehouses that he has. I mean, insane amounts of tusks and bones.
Wow.
And there's even more than this. what is the museum in New York that has his bones? Natural History Museum. From the previous owners of this property, they took a bunch of these bones and they wind up dumping some of them in the East River because they had too many of them.
Oh man.
So then they've sent out people. What is his name? Dirty Water Dan? Don. Dirty Water Don. Dirty Water Don, who's this fucking scuba diver guy who goes into the East River, who found woolly mammoth bones. And what were the other ones? Bison bones. All these different bones at the bottom of the fucking East River, exactly where he said they would be dumped off.
Wow.
So they dumped them because they had so much of them, and then they have a bunch of them that are still there. So now they have Alaskan politicians who are pressuring the museum to release these things back to these people so they can get them in the hands of people that could fucking study them.
Right.
Because they just have them locked up, and they're just trying to say that they're theirs. First they tried to deny they have them, then he provided paperwork, and there's proof, and then they denied there was ever any dumped into the East River. But now they pulled them out of the East River. Now they know.
It's real.
So look at this.
That's incredible.
This is insane.
That's an incredible graveyard.
This is insane.
Wow.
Boning. He calls it, when you help, it's a boneyard, so if you go there, you become a boner. So he wants to make me an official boner. So all these bones, I mean, this is just a small sampling of what this guy has. We have one out there. We have a bison head.
Wow.
That he gave me.
Well, I saw it up there.
Yeah, that's what that is.
That's what that
probably,
is. That came from here? Oh,
yeah,
wow.
that's probably 15,000 years old or something.
Yeah, that's wild. I mean, that's crazy.
This whole thing is insane. Look at all this stuff he's got. I mean, it's just, and this is just one small area that they're chipping away at.
A few acres.
So, and there's charred surface. There's a layer that they go through that's all completely charred. And he's documented this too. Like, what the fuck happened here? Look at this layer. This layer's insane. This whole place was up in flames.
Yep.
See the char? He's got it in his
There it
hand.
goes.
There's thick layers of that. Could you scroll up to his caption? What does it say? Something came in hot from out of this world, I'm thinking. What you're looking at is what we found on the bedrock when we were digging the drain. The bedrock is burned, the gravel is burned, and nobody knows why yet. That's okay. We'll figure it out someday.
Wow.
So there's a whole layer of this.
layer.
It's clearly something was on fucking fire.
Definitely. Well, we found charred stones just like that at the base, ejected out from the base of the bent pyramid of Doja.
Really?
And if you look at this, we've been documenting this. I'm gonna put it in my TV show, the Anunnaki series. There's areas of the bent pyramid that look like they've been blown out. Something hit it and blew out the stone and charred them black, just like that. And there's a debris field out there, and nobody is studying this stuff. So we started studying these charred stones, these charred rocks. And up above the area where you kind of walk in to go down into the bent pyramid, there's more, look like another impact point where there's more stones blown away. And as you walk out away from the face, you discover that's where they lay. And you put your hand in the sand and pull up these charred, burnt stones, which is just wild.
So, can we see some of that? See what that looks like?
Look at the bent pyramid.
The bent pyramid.
Yeah. If anybody goes to those corners, they'll
is
be
this
able
a
to show
common theory? This theory of it being hit by something?
Nobody's talked about it yet. That's why we're trying to analyze and see what could have happened.
A piece hit there, but like the bigger impact was somewhere else, and it just wiped everybody
how
out.
when something comes in, it breaks into chunks, and then a piece hits over here. Yeah, see that corner there? You see that corner? Now that corner, I wish we could get a better color picture, but there's a debris field there. All those stones are just, it looks like an impact, and there's out away from it, there's charred, burnt rocks in the sand. You pick up a regular piece of rock, you can see what that is, a geo. You put up these, it looks like charred, burnt stone that came from the pyramid itself.
I like to see the image of the chart, because to me, when I'm looking at that, it just looks like people were stealing rocks.
But that's exactly what it looks like, but that's not stealing rocks there. And the guide, the homegrown archaeologist that was with us, Muhammad Ibrahim, has the same exact belief, because we are able to see those areas there, the mass of what's missing, the majority of it's in the sand. Which is why I would send you the photo.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't stolen. It was knocked off.
Yeah, it's there. It's still there. So I'll send you the photo that
Jamie,
we have.
Could you please click on the one to the left of your cursor right there? Yeah, that one. Thank you. Can you make that one bigger? I see.
Yeah.
So all that got blown apart.
It's blown apart, and the mass is still there. A lot of it turned into dust and powder, but the black pieces are would be further toward me.
Can you tell us where we could find images of those, the charred?
I have some.
Can you show them to Jamie or send them to Jamie?
I'll send them to you right away. Absolutely.
You can't airdrop it because you're using foreign technology. Not even.
Yeah, we'll just download them and email them to you.
But we want to be able to do it
They're
now.
on our
so we
Google
can-
Photo Drive right now.
Could you just send it to him if
Yeah.
we got you an email? We'll do it right now.
Absolutely.
Okay, Jamie, will you give him an email?
Yeah.
We'll pause here for a
we
second,
can
folks. We'll
find-
get these images.
See if we
We
can
don't
find
want to
some
bore you
images
with
now.
this. Okay. So we left off with the burnt pyramid areas that look like they've been hit.
Yeah.
And he said, so we got the photographs from your wife.
Mm-hmm.
So let's take a look at them here.
Yeah.
So this is a video.
I had the videos because they were going to give me screenshots from the videos.
yeah.
So I figured we just look at the videos instead. There's one that's kind of more zoomed in, but
Yeah, it's hard to get the idea of the coloration, the discoloration there from
Yeah.
the low
Let's
resolution,
see.
phone video.
Do we have any other videos, or is it just videos, Jamie, or we have photo? Oh,
You can
okay.
see those.
This
Okay,
area.
there's
Okay.
some, you see
okay.
those areas there. That's those
Yeah.
black areas on the stone. If you
Yeah.
rub them, they get very black underneath. There's
Okay.
also other pieces that are smaller, laying further out. That
So
are really
there's charred areas that have been covered with dust and sand over time.
Right, exactly.
But if you
yeah.
brush it off, you see it charred.
You see those dark areas there on those stones?
Yes.
That's not the
Pause
natural
that,
color
Jamie.
of the stone. If you
Pause
go back up, that's not the natural color at all. Those colors there, and the geologist and the homegrown guide that we use and the archaeologist also said that's not the normal coloration. They don't know what energetically happened here.
Okay, so now I see it. I see it in that. Stop right there. I see it in that stone right there as
Yeah,
well. So
right.
charred, and then over the thousands of years covered with dust and sand. But if you
Correct.
dust off the dust and sand, you see this
Yes.
charred surface.
Right.
Oh.
Yeah. Which is crazy.
Well, that does kind of make sense if a little chunk hit that.
Yeah.
And a bunch hit some other spots, and that was just.
Yeah.
And it also makes sense if you think about how an advanced civilization like that can just disappear.
Mm-hmm.
What would have to be the moment? It just doesn't make any sense. I know there's the burning of the Library of Alexandria where they lost a lot of the information,
Yeah.
but
I think
it's-
that might have been a book heist.
really,
Yeah, I think the burning of the Library of Alexandria was a heist. The burning did happen, don't get me wrong, but that was just a distraction to steal the knowledge, and that the majority of that knowledge ended up in the Vatican
I
archives.
know the Vatican.
That's what I believe.
Vatican is one of
Yeah.
my favorites.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorites. I went there with my family a few years back, and I was blown away. And I highly recommend it to anybody that gets to go to Rome.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to Rome, please go to the Vatican. It's stunning.
Yeah.
It's stunning, all the artwork they have. And they also have an Egyptian obelisk.
Yes, right
Which
in
is
the
crazy.
center. And you know that obelisk, that courtyard is the same courtyard as Teotihuacan. If you look at Teotihuacan,
You mean the dimensions?
not the dimensions, but just the actual shape of that courtyard, it matches the courtyard of Teotihuacan. So
Really?
yeah, it's an incredible coincidence that they built it based on the Teotihuacan, where the Avenue of the Dead has those platforms, and then you have the Pyramid of the Sun on the right, and the Pyramid of the Moon straight ahead. That area resembles the courtyard of the Vatican.
Wow. The Vatican is so insane. It really, I didn't know. I knew that it had a lot of art. I
Mhm.
didn't know.
It's
I did-
outrageous.
When you go to St. Peter's Basilica, you're just like, what?
I know.
What did you do?
Yeah,
How did
yeah.
you do? How much time did this take?
Yeah.
This is so intricate and so incredible.
I know.
It's one of the most spectacular things I think I've ever seen in my life in terms of like what human beings can do
Mm-hmm.
with ingenuity and time and artisans and
Yep.
craftsmen and artisans that just create the most insane ceiling
Yeah.
you've ever seen in your life. So intricate.
Yeah.
I mean, and perfect for a house of worship because you
Mhm.
walk in there and you believe in God like
Yeah.
immediately.
Right.
Like this is obviously
Look
a
how grand
shrine
this
to
is.
God. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
And the fact that they did it for so long, it took
Yeah.
hundreds of years to make that place.
I know. It's incredible.
It's so amazing.
It lets you know that there's time periods where people would operate within a golden age in certain regions of the planet and have time to do that type of extensive art and
Right.
craft and beauty, create that kind of beauty.
Right, and the only way you do that is when you got your resources covered and your army strong,
That's it.
and that was Rome.
Yep.
I mean, that's what they were back then.
They try to take over the world.
Yeah, and the thing about what they have is they don't have to kind of tell you.
Yeah.
Like, so if they do, like, there's archives that they have in Rome that haven't been searched. Like, they're not just opening them up to everyone,
Right.
so that everyone could look in and see what they have. So there's always been speculation that they have some wild shit written down in there.
Yeah, some wild stuff. I mean, they're investigating aliens. You know,
Right.
I mean, one of the Pope's
Most recent speeches.
astronomers, you know, they were talking about years ago, though. They were talking about years ago that they wanted to, the Pope wanted to baptize the first alien. Now, that's incredible. That's an incredible statement.
That'd be like turning Michio Kaku into a Scientologist.
Right.
Right? It's like, that would be hilarious.
I know.
That would be hilarious.
And then they built this telescope called Lucifer to look for alien life.
That's not a good name.
Yeah.
You would think anybody who would know better.
Right, the light bearers, that, you know, what Lucifer means supposedly, but yeah, they built a telescope named Lucifer.
Right, but the swastika used to be a sign of peace.
Right,
You can't
true.
really use it anymore.
No, you can't use it anymore. I know.
You know, Somebody,
you know.
it's like things can be stolen
Yeah.
forever. No one's rocking that Hitler
No,
mustache. That's a
not-
wrap.
It's over.
The Hitler mustache is over. No one's getting called Adolf. That's over. That's over. You
Yeah,
can't, that
it's a
name's-
wrap. So I
Yeah.
guess they didn't want to, you know, cut that name loose, but they utilized that name for that, the name of that, and it's actually in America. I believe it's in Arizona.
Really?
Yeah,
No kidding. Wow. Lucifer telescope. How
Yeah.
kooky.
I know.
All of the telescopes are fascinating, but what's really the most interesting to me is the James Webb and
Yeah.
the information that's coming out about the birth of the cosmos and about how they're looking at these galaxies that seem too big, that they form too quickly, and that they're starting to re-examine the timeline of the Big Bang, and
Yeah.
that they're reconsidering whether or not they were correct with this 9 or 7?
13.5 to 13.8 billion year.
Yeah, and
number.
they think these galaxies should not exist in this. I was just watching a documentary on it yesterday,
Yeah.
or a couple days ago,
Yeah.
where they were getting into why this doesn't make sense and the size of these galaxies, and
Yeah.
they were too formed.
Right.
And it was, I believe it was 500 million years after the Big Bang.
Right,
So
right.
they're like, this doesn't make sense.
Yeah, according to us now.
According
with our,
to us.
with our minds.
Right.
Yeah. You know, we're still trying to figure out what dark matter is.
Right. Well, I'm just the Terrence Howard, the concept of stars creating planets and the planets eventually getting to a Goldilocks zone, then eventually getting out, and that this is how life propagates through the universe. Like, it makes so much sense.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
with our limited understanding of the cosmos and our adherence to very specific ideas of how it all was created, and the resistance to things like even the James Webb Telescope's discoveries,
Yeah.
you realize that, like, science, like everything else, it's when it's practiced by humans, humans fuck everything up.
Yeah.
They use their ego, they use arrogance, they don't want to be corrected, they want their initial ideas to be correct.
Yeah.
And then there's, you know, a lot of great scientists that are just looking at it and going, this is amazing, like let's keep doing this, and let's
Yeah.
get an even better telescope out there that maybe could see even further, and maybe
Yeah.
we'll have to re-examine what we think about the birth of the universe.
Exactly. I mean, it just keeps getting better. Technology keeps getting better. I remember Hubble, when it came back with the 2 trillion sky book. 2 trillion galaxies is what it estimated exists within our known universe. And then the Webb comes out, and it's just showing this stuff in much more clarity, and it's probably going to make discoveries that are even going to surpass, obviously, Hubble in terms of the quantity of galaxies, and it just keeps getting better and better. We're getting a bigger and better understanding of our place in the universe as a whole, and some people are scared of that. This is why they don't want it to get out. They don't want the information to be put forth that's going to change the paradigm. But the paradigm is not to be afraid. The paradigm shift is about to be embrace this new huge part of us that's connected directly to us. We're part of it, and it's part of us intrinsically, energetically. And I think people are just afraid of what they think is the unknown because it makes them feel small. When I hear all this stuff going on out there, it makes me feel bigger because I know that I am part of it.
Yeah, we are part of it.
Yeah.
But we like to think as individuals. That,
Right.
You know, oh my God, I'm not important. The universe is infinite.
Exactly.
The universe is not just infinite. It's so infinite that the infinite nature of the universe might be a part of an atom
Right.
in another infinite universe.
That's the fractal
Which is
holographic
like-
universe.
Yeah. When you go fractals on things and you
Yeah.
start thinking about it in that terms, you just you go, what?
Yeah.
It's never ending. It's just this constant thing that's in you, in subatomic particles, and deeper than that, and then further out than that. It just never ends.
Right.
It goes both ways forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you just go, oh boy.
I know.
It's hard to take yourself too seriously.
It's hard because and I think individuality is an illusion. We appear to be separate and individuals, but energetically, we're really all the same entity, the same consciousness, experiencing itself differently, subjectively through different bodies.
Yes, different life experiences, different
exactly.
genetics, different places in the world.
Correct.
Yeah, but we're all the same thing.
Yeah.
And that's the hardest thing for people to get in their head. Anyone that you run into is you living another life.
Right.
We're all the concept of me. When you think about it, everyone has that same feeling of me. Everyone has me inside of them. They're just me with less information, more information, better brain, better this, better that, shittier this, shittier that.
Yeah.
And there's an infinite number of examples of it. And then it probably exists everywhere in the cosmos. And it's probably what facilitates change and growth, is that there is this imbalance and that there is this constant struggle amongst human beings.
Right.
And it's probably what makes us constantly try to improve.
Exactly.
It's just very disheartening to think that we improve to the point where we can travel to other planets and have a war.
I know. I know. We don't want that to happen.
We don't want that to happen, but just if it really did happen here, it just makes you think, like, is that just what we do forever? And is this just when we have this utopian perspective of being able to eliminate war on Earth someday, which no one thinks is going to happen, and not with this current version of human beings.
Right.
And then you think, well, if we surpassed Earth, if we passed our genes and our civilization out into the universe, are we still going to be behaving the same way?
Right.
And if we were, if I was an alien, I'd be like, don't let those dudes in. If we get to a point where we're us now, but 500 years from now, where we're the same genes, same wacky ass crazy genes, but now we have time travel. Now we have interplanetary travels like that, and then we show up with nuclear bombs. Like, give us all your titanium.
Right.
Like, fuck. That's a problem.
Yeah, that could be a problem.
I would be really trying hard to stop us if I was from another planet.
I think a lot of the suppression and oppression of technologies, potentially, this hypothesis could be that there's a hand in the background holding us back a little bit. It's quite possible.
But then there's a theory like the Diana Pasulka's books, where they talk about these discs that they have found in the recovery program that apparently does exist. They call them donations. They think that these things are kind of left here so that we can just go, oh, fiber optics, what a great idea.
Velcro.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of things that seem to, like, transistors.
Microchips, right.
Yeah, a lot of these things seem to have come very quickly after Roswell. Yeah. Which is interesting.
That's a fact. I believe in the ARVs, alien reproduction vehicles. I believe that exactly is what's really going on with a lot of these UAPs. I think that a lot of them are ours. I believe that there's UFOs out there, but a lot of these objects that we see in the sky are probably made by us by re-engineering existing alien technology. But it comes to the point, are we going to be able to advance as a civilization to get beyond war? I just saw they released an AI fighter jet that went into a dogfight.
Yes.
Just a few weeks ago.
Yeah, Mike Baker was on here showing us that.
Right.
And it beats the human piloted planes 100% of the time.
Yeah. So
that's a wrap.
That's Skynet.
Yeah,
Skynet is online.
And then on top of that, instead of just AI powered fighter jet, you could develop a fighter jet that no longer has a person in it, so you have to worry about G-forces.
Right.
You could do wild shit.
Yes, exactly.
And it's fully AI controlled vehicle, especially as these technologies scale up. Like, I have a Tesla, and my Tesla has auto drive. And I can set in a destination, like a restaurant I like to go to, press auto drive and navigation, and it does everything.
Wow.
It hits the blinkers, it stops at stop signs, it stops at red lights, it takes turns, it changes lanes, it moves around parked vehicles.
Wow.
It's fucking wild. And it's not done yet.
And this is the beginning.
Yeah, it does. I heard it hits curves. I heard, like, when you're taking turns, like for overpasses or underpasses, like a few people have curved up.
Yeah.
So keep your hands on the wheels, kids. But it's not there yet, but it's a lot better than when I first got it. I remember I was driving down Laurel Canyon, and I was with my wife, and I was playing around. I was like, we're listening to Led Zeppelin, and I'm like moving my hand around the steering wheel. I'm like, look at this, the car's driving itself. This is crazy. But that was primitive back then. I didn't totally trust it. It was probably better than I thought it was, but like every now and then it would get a little wonky. Now it's smooth. Now you use it all, James?
Here and there, I kind of almost forget sometimes where that's like, oh yeah, this car drives its fucking self.
I do it for a goof sometimes.
Yeah, it's just random.
I've been doing it a lot lately. It's shockingly good.
Well, our grandkids are that's all they're gonna know.
100%.
They won't have to drive at all.
Yeah, but right now, like people joke around about manual cars that it's a good theft deterrent device. Have a manual transmission. Nobody knows how to drive that fucking thing.
This is hard.
Yeah, well, it used to be the only way you could get a car.
That was it. I learned it by accident, you know, because I was in an emergency situation and I had to drive my friend's car that was a manual. And I had to learn within the distance between where I was to where I had to go.
Oh, wow.
Because one of my kids had got hurt doing something.
And the only car available was a manual.
That was it. Yeah.
It's not hard. I mean, you could learn it quick, but most people don't know how to do it. But
No.
the thing is, like, that's going away. Like, they're now saying that the next version of Porsches is going to be the last version that they have with the manual transmission. And which is crazy because Porsche, that was the one thing that people held on to, was that you could get that stick shift. People love that engagement of the car.
Right.
But that's going to be the thing of the past. Everything's going to be automated because your freedom to drive that, people are going to, the communist nature of, especially California, they'll do it first probably. Your freedom to drive that is not worth, the potential of you taking someone's life in an accident.
Right.
And this makes sense. That's part of the problem. It does make sense. You can see the argument.
Oh, yeah. It makes sense, and that's where everything's going to go. I mean, there's going to be so many, drivers are going to disappear, like chauffeurs and so forth. So it's all going to go away.
There's a lot of that in here. They cause traffic jams. These wacky driverless cars, they have them here. And they're not quite there yet, but they're good enough to take people around, which is crazy, Take me to Red Ash, drive you to the restaurant, drops you off, bye, thank you.
Yeah.
All in an app, everything's done, it's simple. Yeah. It's kind of nuts, and it's just the beginning. I mean, we didn't have any of this 10 years ago.
No.
10 years in most time periods is not that big of a deal technologically. Technologically, rather.
Yeah.
Right now, it's ChatGPT 5. When they release that, it's going to be as big a leap, if not bigger, than 3 to 4. And 3 to 4 was nuts.
Yeah. I mean, in 100 years, we went from a horse, buggy, and carriage all the way to putting remote control cars on Mars. So we're moving at an extremely fast pace right now, and they just released this ChatGPT and other robotics on humanity. Which is great. It's going to do a lot of good for us. But at the same time, if you're going to replace somebody's job, you have to then take away their financial responsibilities. You can't expect them to still have the financial responsibilities and take away the job.
Right.
So that's going to be the conundrum. I'm waiting to see how that's going to pan out. How many of us are going to stand up and say, look, wait a minute now. I'm a single mother of 3, and I can't waitress anymore. So what's going to happen? Or even attorneys are at risk. Nurses are at risk now. So
well, here's the
what are they going to do?
There's enough money in this country, just in this country alone, to, if you did replace jobs, you make it so that whatever controls that industry has to give a certain percentage to ensure not just like a living wage, but a good wage, like where people live well and they don't have to think about it. But then you got to give people a purpose, because you can't just have them laying around getting free money and not having a life. A lot of people, their purpose is their job. That's what they look forward to. They get engaged with something. They have a community there. They have tasks that they do. They succeed. They go out to dinner and celebrate. That's a big part of life for people. You can't just take that away. So then, how does that get replaced? I think it's video games. I think they're
going to go into cyber world.
Yes.
When you look into the ancient texts, they had similar situations in these golden ages, but people spent time working for things like service to others, traveling, arts and crafts, exploring inner peace. So it's about teaching people new ways to define and develop their passions and how to explore those passions.
Well, that would be a big yoga explosion across the country. That would be great. People get into fitness and martial arts and just be able to do. But you have to do something.
Right.
If you
become stagnant, you die.
Yeah, and you still should have the ability to possibly work if you want to. Right. It shouldn't be mutually exclusive. Like, you don't get this money unless. If everybody got like $200 grand a year, just imagine the entire country just gets a free $200 grand a year. You're never gonna have to worry about food. You're never gonna have to worry about a place to live. You're good.
Yeah.
You got $200,000 a year because everything's automated. And everything's done by the government. Then you're gonna have to find something.
Right.
You're gonna have to find a purpose. There's got to be a thing, whether it's art or writing or whatever it is. You better find something, or you're gonna go crazy.
Yeah.
And so then there's gonna be a percentage of our population that's active. They're going to be working out, and there's going to be a bunch of us that just fuck off and drink beer and play Call of Duty.
Just sit down.
Yeah, and just get hammered and fucking order pizza and never have to do anything. Yeah, live in a nice place. You don't have to worry about money ever. You can always buy like a good laptop, and you get together with your buddies and y'all play games, but better have something. Go bowling. You better have something. You better have something you like to do.
Yeah.
You know, 'cause
That's where it's going though.
but wouldn't that be better than work? Because for most people, like, you know, there's a great satisfaction working and accomplishing a hard day's work, and you know, you get your paycheck and you feel like you've accomplished something. But wouldn't it be better if you just all of your needs were met? And we put an emphasis in our culture on creating and doing things that interest you, and whether it's competition or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But this would be financed essentially by this ability that you just get free money because robots control everything.
They
There's
have plenty
no
of
more
money.
jobs.
There's no more jobs. I mean,
Right.
they don't have to pay a salary to these robots. Only
Exactly.
repair costs
Exactly.
and management costs, obviously. So yeah, it would
And
be
the
great.
$200,000 that everybody gets, they're getting it anyway because they were going to buy stuff from them.
Exactly.
It would be a wild change and shift in how human beings interacted. And if there was a way for us to channel that in a positive manner, it could ultimately be beneficial. And we could be looking back on these days where people are working at Wendy's and what the fuck was that about?
Yeah. Well, most people are working in jobs that they're not passionate about
Right.
these jobs.
Right.
And it's evident in their work, you know, their effort and their
Sure.
and their work ethics.
Well, it's
But,
also evident in their success, right?
Yeah.
And their happiness.
That's right.
Like a guy like you who likes to do what you like. You
Yeah.
enjoy this. You pursue this. You talk about this. You're very good at it. This is a great way to live.
Yeah.
And other people can find other similar things or different things that similarly excite them.
Yeah. And if we were under that new scenario of $200,000 a year, whatever it was, I would still do this.
Of course.
You know, so people will work. It's like Star Trek. They work for free on Star Trek. They don't, you know, it's just a TV series, but they don't have a paycheck.
Kirk didn't get paid.
No, they never got paid any money. It was all for free.
Communists. They were trying to turn us into communists.
It's all for free. But they did it because they were passionate about it and they believed in it so much. And so there's things that people can still do if they're passionate about those things. And you know, it's just work, but you don't ask for a paycheck.
Right. If there was a base paycheck for the whole country, just a base paycheck based on, I wonder if 200 grand is even possible. What is $200,000 times 333 million? Check that out, Jimmy. What's
And only 190 million are adults. 190 million adults.
right? That's right. Let's be generous. Let's make it 200 million adults.
Yeah.
So 200 million times 200,000 is what?
So it'd be 2 times 2 is 4. Add all the zeros from the 200,000 onto the 4 million.
Right. What is that in like the word? Is it trillions? 200,000 times 200 million. So 6 zeros is a billion. 9 zeros is no 6 zeros a million. 9 zeros is a billion.
4 equals 13, so 4, 13 zeros.
13 zeros. 4 times 13 zeros. That's a lot of money, folks. Gonna have to drain these oligarchs.
Well,
Tax the rich.
what was the numbers?
200,000 times 200 million.
40 billion?
That is going to be.
Either 40 billion or 400 billion.
It's $40 billion.
40 billion. That's
Yeah,
it.
That's it.
Reasonable.
That's
Okay,
reasonable.
that's
40 billion.
so reasonable.
Yeah.
That's so reasonable.
That's less than the military-industrial complex budget for the year.
100%. Imagine that, folks. I just want you to think about that. We could give 200 million people $200,000 a year. That's a good amount of money.
Yeah.
$200,000 is nice. You can live in a nice house,
Yeah.
go on vacation, you can eat well.
Yeah.
$200,000.
Yeah, not bad at all.
Not bad at all. And if you did that, you could also still work. You could also still make money. But everybody, if we just elevated every adult in this country to that amount of money,
Yeah.
and everybody, you're talking communist. No, I'm talking. Everything's going to be automated, folks.
Yeah.
And there should be some sort of a tax on the result that this has on society, particularly when, if everything is automated, the people who run the automation and they're going to be making staggering amounts of money.
Yeah.
So if a tax of $40 billion a year to keep everybody happy, keep everybody from going fucking crazy, I mean, that might be, it sounds crazy. because it goes against human instincts, right? Like human nature
It
is.
goes against our programming and what we've been programmed to believe is correct.
And is that because we were designed to mine for gold?
That's
We were
right.
Designed to work hard, right?
Designed to work hard, man.
Because it's kind of in our head that we have to work hard.
Listen, we're so programmed to believe what happened in ancient times that we believe the government is in control of us when we're in control of the government.
Right.
We allow them to tell us what to do when we should be telling them what to do and what we want. But we sit back and allow them to put rules in place, laws on us, and even lock us up and do things to us. And there's nothing we can do about it. But people think there's nothing we can do. There is something we can do. We've given up our power. We've relinquished our power to an outside source. Because of divide and conquer, it allows it to work. Once we realize that divide and conquer is just a distraction, that we should coordinate together and organize, then we can take back control of this planet.
Yeah, and this idea of the government being in control of you is literally how it works with every single country in the world. It's just a natural course of human nature that the people in power want more power.
Yeah.
You know, when you're selling skateboards, you want to sell more skateboards next year. You know, when you're in power, you don't want to relinquish some of your power and make it better on the people. No, you want to clamp down that power more. We had to get on Facebook and stop these people from tweeting about things or posting about things. You know, we have to. This has become a problem. Let's put pressure on this company to censor certain voices on YouTube.
Exactly.
And that's the shit that happens. That's really what happens because they're not acting in the best interests of humanity. They're acting in their best interest, which is what every industry does when it's just trying to make money.
Exactly. Well, the United States is a company, a corporation.
Right.
And so they're acting like a corporation.
That's the reality of it. I agree with you too about this UAP thing, UFO, UAP. It just many people have said this, but I'll repeat it. That there's something about them doing it always near where military bases are.
Yes.
Dude, it's super suspicious.
Come on. I mean, listen, to me, what's going to happen or what potentially could happen, another Gulf of Tonkin incident. You know, the incident that created the Vietnamese War, they lied about an attack at the Gulf of Tonkin.
False flag.
To create the Vietnamese War. Yeah, exactly. So all of a sudden you see one of these UAPs, they're going to call up one of these not ours. We don't know whose it is, and then it attacks a Navy vessel.
Yep.
And now they've got the right to say we need $10 trillion a year, whatever the number is, to create these weapons.
After Iran.
Yeah, right. Whatever, and then
something.
and it generates more money.
Yeah.
So could this be why the formation of the Space Force is here, so that they can find a way to channel money into something else, where these private corporations can create these black budget projects that we've approved because we're afraid we're going to be attacked by aliens now. And then they take that money and they develop these projects that never see the light of day, and they all chop up the money behind the scenes.
Yeah, that's the reality of the world we live in, folks. And if you're clinging on to this left versus right, these cultural war arguments, you are getting caught up in their bullshit game. Most people want the same thing. They want to be healthy. They want their family to be healthy and happy. They want to have a pursuit that they enjoy. They want to enjoy their community, enjoy their loved ones. That's what most people want. Most people want the same thing.
Yep.
Most of the shit that you're seeing has all been stirred up by foreign governments and special interest groups and a bunch of shit. And if you're online, they're spoon feeding it to you. If you're online and you're engaging on social media, they are shoving that down your throat.
With gaslighting every day.
Gaslighting you every day. And it's more and more obvious now that it's ever been before because people at least are aware of it. They know what's going on, but it's shocking how much of it is going on. And it's allowing us to fight with each other while all this shit is going on behind the scenes and all these hundreds of billions of dollars. I mean, we talked about $40 billion a year.
Yeah.
What is the amount of money we spent so far in Ukraine? What's they continue to raise it, right? They just approved a new batch of money that's headed over there. It's insane amounts of money.
Numbers are incredible.
Yeah.
And we have infrastructure falling apart here.
Yeah.
People I just came from LA a few weeks ago. People on the streets of LA.
Okay, so Congress passed 5 bills appropriating $175 billion in response to Russia's February 22 invasion of Ukraine. So this is of May 9th of 2024, which is the most recent. So $175 billion. That could have solved all poverty in America.
Yeah.
Literally solved poverty, which is wild.
Yeah.
If poverty and crime are our number one problem in this country, which I would say they are, that would solve our number one problem.
The crime is a side effect
100%
of the poverty.
Yes, and I always said this: if Halliburton can get these no-bid contracts to clean up Iraq after we bomb it, and it's for profit, right? So they make a lot of money doing that. How about a no-bid contract to clean up terrible neighborhoods.
Exactly.
No-build contract
Yep.
to, or a no-bid contract rather to develop community programs,
Yep.
and they'll be funded through the state. They'll make a ton of money, and you can do this. And then also, you'll have a ripple effect. You'll have less crime.
Yep.
You'll have more people that are out there in the workforce. You have
Yep.
more people that are being productive. More people that are inventing things, and creating music and culture and art and
Yep.
all kinds of other things that people like to do, and they're not getting locked up in fucking jail.
Exactly.
And then you just have to figure out a way to get off the grip of the military, or the rather prison industrial complex, which has a vested interest in keeping people locked up, because that's what the idea that we let that, we let it be profitable to put people in fucking jail, and then we let the prison guards actively campaign to make sure that certain laws stay in place so that people keep getting locked up
Yeah.
for non-violent crimes.
Yeah, 40% of the people that are locked up in America are locked up on victimless crimes.
Yeah.
They only hurt themselves.
It's so nuts. And the amount of money that's generated by private prisons, that should be zero. It
Yeah.
should be $0.
Right.
It should be no incentive to put people in a cage.
Yeah, you can't have capitalism in everything. Capitalism has to be broken into pieces. You can't have it in medicine, healthcare, prison systems.
No.
Right?
Imagine if that was the way with the fire department.
Oh, man.
Imagine if you had to pay to get your house
Right.
put out. Right?
Wow.
That's the one thing that we exist, that we rather accept rather universally, that we pay for.
Yeah.
It's a socialist idea. The fire department is paid for by the state,
Yep.
and we need fire department people. We need everybody well trained and all the equipment to be working perfectly. We all
Exactly.
agree to that. Why?
Yeah.
Because it's a real dilemma.
Yeah. It makes
So-
sense. It's logic.
So is poverty.
Yeah.
So is crime
And mental health.
and mental health. Yeah, and
People on the street are mentally ill.
giving kids guidance, having community programs, and having education programs, and giving people like an avenue where they can get out from where they are and see a path to success, so they don't feel despair. They have a possibility, and show and have it be run by people who've already made it through. Say, I can help you, just like you could teach someone how to play piano, or you could teach someone how to do karate. You could teach people how to live life.
That's right.
Yeah, and it costs a lot less
Yeah.
than what it's costing the Ukraine. And how much would it benefit our economy? How much would it benefit our culture, our society? How much more would get done if there was less crime? A lot more. And then those people of all, instead of being criminals, now they're contributors.
Yeah.
There's enough for everybody.
And a civilization grows the way it should grow.
Yes, the way
in
it
the
should
right
grow.
direction.
The
Yeah.
problem is it's been captured. It's
Yeah.
been captured by elites that want to keep draining money. And they keep draining money and using it for their own needs and their own means. And it's
That's what
terrifying.
That's why I call it polytricks. Polytricks. That's what it's called. Yeah.
We made a pretty
Oh.
bad math there.
Okay, what we got? Oh, 40 trillion.
40 trillion.
Thank
Oh,
you, sir.
That's
Thank you
much
for
more of an
correcting
issue.
that. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, I return. We're fucked. We're never going to have enough money to fix this problem. I forgot what I
No.
said.
They
So what
they
is
just
our
print the money.
GDP? What is our? Yeah, but that's gone too because that creates inflation.
Creates inflation.
What's our GDP? Boy, this is a big difference between 40 trillion and 40 billion. How many people are yelling at the computer? You fucking idiots!
I worked backwards from one of the things we did. Says $875. I think that is not enough to get everybody.
That's hilarious.
GDP increased in 2020 to 27.36 trillion.
That's our GDP every year. Oh, so we don't even have enough money
Yeah,
because it
we're
would
still
take
short.
double our GDP.
That's for 200K. If you want to go to 200K.
Yeah. Well, you have to give people. It's only 200 million people. It's not even everybody.
Right. That's
Wow.
4,000.
So we're fucked. I'm back to we're fucked.
You just cut it down.
Cut it in half. You can do it.
If you do it, if you
Yeah,
cut
but
it,
even then.
if you have it like $80,000, and then let people work to earn their own money and other things.
Yeah,
side
200
hustles,
grand was a little
small
off.
businesses. Yeah,
Okay, so if it was 40 trillion, you could get it down to 15 trillion. That's still most of the money we made. It's still
It's going to increase though significantly in the next 10 years because of the AI.
right.
You know, all the chips and robots. When a company can lay off like Amazon, lay off 1,000 people and replace them with 1,000 robots,
Right.
their profit margin goes up significantly within the first 8 to 10 years.
Yeah, what, if anything, is being done to provide a safety net? Because you can't give people $200 a week.
Right.
You know, whatever it is, it's got to be a significant amount of money to actually get by.
Yeah.
Whatever that number is, whatever we decide that number is. The number could be less if things are covered, like if AI becomes so efficient at creating power. We have it in our head that power must be paid for.
Yeah.
But if AI becomes so efficient and eliminates jobs that we decide that we're going to nationalize all of our power, and then we'll look at power the same way we look at the fire department.
Right.
and we set it up as a socialist power system, which is not the worst idea in the world if you consider that most power is being generated by the use of natural resources, which really belong to the earth, and like that individuals are pulling these out and profiting from them wildly, especially when they're doing like offshore oil drills. Like, who owns that spot?
Bro, why am I
How
not
are they able to
moving?
Suck all that oil and make billions of dollars out of the ground that we all live on. Like, it seems like that should be everybody's.
Right.
But
I
then
think
you
that-
lose the incentive for profit that allows you to go dig.
True. You lose incentive, yeah. I think that everything is going to move. Not everything, but a lot of power is going to move towards hydrogen. That's the big new push. The Navy has vessels now that run off of hydrogen, so they never have to go refuel.
Do you know that Bob Lazar made a hydrogen Corvette in like 1990?
Wow, incredible.
That's like
Wow,
yeah, he was such a freak.
wow.
Oh, he is such a freak, but I love that dude. I'm
He's
fascinated by him, and I don't know if he's telling the truth, but boy, I hope he does. He is. But, you know, one of the crazy stories about him was in the Los Alamos Labs days, when he was living there in New Mexico, he developed a rocket-powered Honda. So he put a jet engine on a fucking Honda.
A lot of time on his hands there.
Well, he's just a genius.
Yeah, he's a genius. He's an absolute genius. Look, he talked about Element 115 before we discovered Element 115.
Yes.
So that's what sold me on him.
Well, he also has never really varied from the story.
Yeah.
And to tell a story for more than 30 years and tell the exact same story is pretty strange.
Yeah.
And also didn't really profit off of it.
No.
It's
it
not
didn't.
like a thing that he's like selling Bob Lazar t-shirts and, you know, Bob Lazar was right, baseball hats and constantly going on podcasts. No, he
Right.
did my podcast.
Yeah.
I don't even know if he's done another one.
I don't know. I know he got, you know, a lot of hell for it.
Yeah.
You know, and
I was trying to get him to come back
ridicule.
on again, but he's working on things. Well, during the Jeremy Corbell documentary, the FBI raided him,
Yeah.
which is insane.
It's insane.
And
Right.
he
He's-
thinks that they believe that he has a stable version of Element 115, that he has a sample of it
Wow.
somewhere. Yeah, and so they went. He thinks that's what they went looking for.
They'd love to get their hands on that because
Right.
the decay rate's so fast.
Well, the video that George Knapp had, there's a video that George Knapp had from a long time ago where he was demonstrating with George Knapp how this element, when bombarded with radioactivity, could distort gravity. And he had some experiment that they did that we could show with light, and I don't exactly remember what the parameters of the experiment were, but that thing is one of the things that convinced George Knapp that maybe he's telling the truth. And this whole thing is crazy. And then when you see like these images where it shows these crafts behaving as he described,
Yeah.
that this gravity projection generator, or whatever it is, this gravity generator, whatever this thing is, they weren't exactly sure
Right.
how to, because they, at least back then in '89.
Yeah.
But that you would turn towards where you wanted to go sideways, and that's how it would travel.
Wow.
And they saw these videos of these crafts doing that, of
Same thing.
rotating. Yeah,
Same thing.
by fighter jets. So
Yeah.
fighter jets are locked in on them with these high-speed sensors, and they're locking them. And there's like a video where they go, "Finally, I got it locked in."
Right.
And they're like, "Look at it go."
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah.
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 See if you can find that video. 'Cause that video is one of my favorites. Because the pilots are so genuinely excited about
Right.
this.
Is that
When they
Tic Tac?
finally lock it in, I think that's the Go Fast.
Go fast.
The Go Fast one.
Okay.
And they're like, "Ooh, we got it. We got it locked in." Like, what the fuck is
Right.
this thing?
Have you researched any of the Vimanas from the ancient texts?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's very, very fascinating.
Yeah,
Because
I mean-
they, in the Bhagavad Gita, is this the one? Yeah, this is it. And in the Mahabharata, they talk about these flying crafts. Like,
Yeah.
what is this? Which about to hear is actually U.S. fighter pilots. Powerful Raytheon. Display, pod display. How come I'm not hearing any voices? Oh, there it goes.
Yeah.
Here it goes. Oh, there's just explaining how the display works, this Raytheon display, and how these fighter jets are using this to try to lock in on this thing. So look how it zooms in.
Yeah.
They see it pass by. It's going so fast, they're trying to lock in on it, but they're having a hard time. So they keep adjusting, and they're trying to get their sensors.
Boom.
So they got it.
Yeah.
So now they're excited.
Yeah.
What the fuck is that?
Yeah,
What
it's
is
great.
that? Like, what the fuck is that?
That's right. It's wild, man.
What is that?
Like I said, I just see these things and I go back to the the Vimanas. They ran on a ferrofluid vortex engine.
That's how it was described?
Yeah, ferrofluid. So they had liquid mercury.
Ferrofluid?
Ferrofluid, which is liquid metal. And so they put liquid metal inside.
How do you spell that?
F-E-R-R-O. Ferro.
We used to have a ferrofluid lamp.
Yeah.
Really?
Like that one thing, like put a magnet on it and the.
Oh yeah, where is that? Is that in storage?
So you use a ferro. So you put, if you take a torus.
We need a new one, Jimmy. Order some new.
If you take a torus and you put a ferrofluid like mercury inside of it, and you magnetize the torus in a way that creates this rotation, this RPM of the mercury moving around that field, and you get it up to about 60,000 RPMs, and then you actually pressurize the torus to about 250,000 atmospheres. And you electrify it, you get anti-gravity properties.
What?
Yeah.
Whoa.
So you can create a anti-gravity flying device utilizing that technique, and this is really, well known.
And how do they describe it in the text?
In the text, they talk about the fact that it uses mercury in a rotating disc.
Really?
And then they have some of the, the flight plans and some of the layout of actually the plans of the actual ship itself, one of the ships. And so from that, you can almost hypothesize or backward engineer what it might have been able to do. And in the text, it says they used to take a complement of men to many worlds. So this is incredible technology.
A complement of men to many worlds. Wow.
Yeah.
So do you think that the government has access to something similar to that?
Oh, I believe so, 1,000%. I believe they've been backwards engineering information from ancient texts, and of course any artifacts that they found from anywhere in the world. They might have even gotten information from, Saddam Hussein's museum, because that's the first place we went in the Gulf after the whole situation happened with, wanting to go take him out of power and kill him. They went straight to the museum.
So this, Jamie just pulled this up. It says flying with ferrofluids. To solve this problem, L. Brad King, Ron and Elaine Starr, professor in space systems at Michigan Tech, is creating a new kind of microthruster that assembles itself out of its own propellant when excited by a magnetic field. The tiny thruster requires no fragile needles and is essentially indestructible. We're working with unique material called ionic fluid ferrofluid, King says, explaining that it's both magnetic and ionic, a liquid salt. When we put a magnet underneath a small pool of ferrofluid, it turns into a beautiful hedgehog structure of aligned peaks. When we apply a strong electric field to that array of peaks, each one emits an individual microjet of ions.
Yep.
Whoa.
Exactly. You have to electrify it. Once you electrify it, you create this electromagnetic activity.
This is what it looks like in...
I think it's just
So just giving you how it transfers itself.
Wow. And so you could use that as something that could propel a device.
Yes, absolutely.
Wow.
And you don't get to reduce the gravity, the weight of an object to zero, but you significantly reduce the weight of an object.
And the fact that they figure this out, and it's in, is it in the Mahabharata or the Bhagavad Gita?
And the Mahabharata.
Wow.
And then also, I think there's one account in the Vedas.
Like, what is the definition? Like, what's the explanation for how they figured that out? Like, help me out.
There's
help
no
me out.
explanation.
How the fuck?
They say they have flying cities. They say they have flying cities, and these cities would go to battle sometimes against each other in the sky.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So you're talking about massive objects flying around.
Yeah, again, how do they explain that away? That's what I want to know. How do you explain that away?
How do you explain somebody thousands of years ago sitting down to write a sci-fi epic?
Well, not just that, but writing about a process
Oh yeah.
of creating this field that now has been documented all these thousands of years later.
It works now.
Like, how did you figure that out? Like,
And this
what were you
happens-
guys doing?
This happens over and over again in text. In the
Yeah.
Emerald Tablets, just the book I wrote, Thoth talks about using cymatic frequencies and light waves to create manifest solid matter. And what happened about 4 years ago in the laboratory, they used cymatic frequencies and photons to create solid matter out of nothing. Just happened about 4 years ago.
What did they create?
They just create a few particles, But the fact that we can do it, but it was already in ancient text.
Wow.
So now
we
know
can
how to
do it on a very small scale,
Very small
just
scale.
like we can create element 115 with a collider.
Correct.
Same kind of thing. And
Same
it's a
thing.
very small, unstable version of element 115 that only exists for a fraction of a second, but they can measure it.
Right.
So, but if with sufficiently advanced technology, you can create it and then form a stable version of that.
Right. Imagine being able to build an entire city by manifesting the matter needed to build the city instead of harvesting instead of harvesting the city from rock.
3D print the city
With
with
nanobots.
ions.
You would use
Nanobots.
nanobots to build the whole city. It would manifest as it went.
And you could also use that to repair things.
Absolutely.
So you would never have to have like construction again. Everything would be self-replicable.
Correct.
Self-repairable.
Correct.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, like, of course, if you just scale up, just think about what we can do now and keep going, make
That's
it
it.
much better and much more efficient.
We're talking about programmable matter now. Programmable matter.
And what you were saying about DNA, the fact that you can encode into DNA, and that you could actually hold information in DNA.
Yeah. Microsoft has created the very first DNA hard drive. So it's a molecular hard drive that works on technology that's hardware and also biological software. And so a device, a hard drive the size of my cell phone, can store an enormous amount of petabytes of data. So things like teleportation are going to be possible in the near future. We've already teleported, I think, a couple of particles from Earth to the space station, right? But what's stopping us from teleporting a human being? Understanding and knowing the location of every atom and the rotation and spin rate of every atom. That's a lot of information, a lot of storage space. Now with DNA hard drives, the storage space problem goes away. We'll be able to teleport biological beings or objects, big objects, into space or wherever we want on the planet.
Like Star Trek.
Like Star Trek.
Who's going to be the first guy to get beamed up?
Somebody's going to be a real guinea pig for that one.
Yeah, we're going to have to find some pedophiles.
Because when you teleport, you die. I don't know if people know that.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, that's a bit of an issue.
Teleport. I mean, you're reborn again instantly in another location, but it's a facsimile of you. Anytime you teleport, even the molecules that we teleport now, the original version, the original molecule or the starting matter, it's destroyed, and the data is then transmitted, and then it's reformulated. So a teleportation is actually the death of you and the reformation of you.
Maybe they could do a better job, like an Instagram filter. You know, maybe you could just like tone a few things up, clean up a little bit,
get rid of some scars or whatever.
Get rid of some body fat.
Right.
Yeah, maybe they can make a better version of you, but you have to be willing to die.
Yeah.
Yeah, but maybe that's hell. Maybe you come back and you have no soul.
Well,
like maybe when you teleport, your soul doesn't go with you.
Well, they're transmitting your consciousness, so everything is saved. All your information is saved. And we know that was done also in ancient times. Thoth talks in the Emerald Tablets about being able to go into these halls of Amenti where he had rejuvenation chambers, which is what I believe is the Serapeum in Saqqara. And he would go into these gigantic stone boxes, and he would then transfer his consciousness from his body into another body. And he would leave the body that he left inside of one of those gigantic boxes, one of those gigantic diorite stone boxes for 100 years while it recharged itself and rejuvenated, while he said he walks amongst men but unlike a man.
What?
Yeah. And he would do this for eons. He would transfer from body to body, not bodies he stole, bodies he created, that he created himself through probably some advanced form of stem cell technology. And he would walk amongst men but unlike a man. And he was known all around the planet because of this. The guy lived according to the ancient Egyptians, he ruled over them for 16,000 years, one person.
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
So was this those ancient texts, like the ancient hieroglyphs that show kings going back like 30,000 years?
Well, that's the Sumerian kings list located in the Ashmolean Museum in Oxford, England. I was there myself in person to check out this stonework. And it's an incredible tablet that talks about the reigns of kings.
Yeah.
Some kings ruled for 28,800 years, 14,000 years. I mean, 20,000. If the numbers are insane.
These are not Egyptian?